Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Chief Delegate meeting. This is meeting number 20. Today is Thursday, March 3rd, and all six of us are here. Randall may need to dip out after a little bit, and we're going to just kick things off with some individual updates. So we'll start with you, Randall. Take it away.
All right. So for this week, I was able to finish some work with polling system. We added polling system to our platform, so in the future we can, do some polls and have real users that are either agent members or users that we've been able to verify using port. So that's something that we finished. And I think I talked about how we finished the voting system. So now we are working on integration. With the dApps and all that stuff. So we are doing some good work there. In terms of exchanges, we have like over 900 and change exchanges that we've been able to collect some information about them, contacts, and we are working on dApps as well. And these are things that we are doing so that we can help with the communication strategy when it's time for upgrades. And we are still helping out with tickets as well. There's something that came up, but I think Aaron already told us that he was investigating on that. And John also had a problem with Power Up. We reached out to him and he told us what was going on. So far, so good. We don't have any other issues from that end. Everything seems to be going well. We are helping people on a daily. And we are trying to also help Fractally so that we can, get the consensus of the people and build Fractally on EOS. So that's about it.
Cool. Speaking of Fractally, John, you wanna jump in?
Well, other than working on Fractally, been just in the chats, helping people understand more, and also our fireside chat, get a bit more information out there, and answer any questions that the community has on Fractally, and the ideas pumping on what we can do with it.
All right, cool. Jesse, take it away.
Hey guys, hope everyone had a good week. It was a tough week for us. I'll go through some of the points. We started dipping our toes in the crypto influencer pool, and we did a video with a Spanish influencer called BTC Monitor, about 75,000 subs, and many things went wrong in that. We looked at 7, so we have a document, 7 things went wrong. Pretty disappointing. And then the next day, we had a Turkish, like a tweet. It's like, all right, we figured out some of the problems. We'll do this, check all 7 boxes, and then an 8th thing went wrong. And so, we're just, we're learning how to best navigate these influencers, and actually have a meeting with Waxa, with Helios and EOS Marketing. We're going to brainstorm a little bit, like the best way to deal with these influencers. Also, our French Hive, we're doing like an EOS news type thing with an influencer on Facebook. So that's kind of like our 2 strategies right now. We want to do interviews, and we want to share news, like just share EOS stuff like once a week. Still working with the Uganda, or the in Uganda influencer. We're going to be doing something with him next week. So yeah, that's that. our swarms have been difficult. This bot on Discord is just really not working so well for us. That's why we're working with Tippet, and that's coming along nicely, and hopefully they'll be done soon. So we're just really gonna save our swarms for like the really negative stuff out there. And so we did one the other day. This influencer called Crypto Wizard, 300,000 followers. He said EOS is dying, had a EOS BTC chart. And actually, that just reminds me about that chart. So like I said, we spoke to a Turkish influencer. We did a deal with them, and they spoke to their influencer friends like about EOS, because like they haven't heard about EOS in a while, and now we're paying them like in EOS. And apparently what they came back with was like the EOS BTC chart is looking so bad that they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And you know, it's like these technical analysis, it's like might as well be like voodoo. I mean, I don't believe in that stuff at all, but people care about it. And so it's been tough. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty in the community, like we all know. I mean, anyone watching these CDA calls knows what I'm talking about. And when you have uncertainty, it's just a suppression for the price. So that's been really tough. We're trying to work through things. I understand that, you know, sometimes it gets really messy before we come to a good solution with more certainty. So hopefully we'll get there eventually. We are working on the Fractally white paper translation. We're almost done. Recording this on a Thursday. Hopefully the Spanish, Korean, and Chinese translations will be out and formatted tomorrow. And the conflict in Russia is really causing us difficulties in the Russian and Chinese hive. Our Chinese Princess Bee, he is really being a champion with this translation. He's moving cities, he's going in bunkers and working on this translation, like really commendable effort from our Princess Bee in the Chinese hive. We are working on our report, our February report. We're gathering all the data, but it's really coming along when we started EOS Bees 2.0. And all the hives are really kind of getting like a really solid footing, it feels now, with the system. And so we have like 11 solid hives. We also had some not resignation, but we have some new Princess Bees in the English hive. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank Dario with the bottom of my heart. The English hive, it's been the incentives for most people who speak English, they're in the United States or Canada or Australia. It's just not a great incentive. So it's been really hard for us finding a leader in English hive. And Darrow's been with us since the beginning, and he kind of saw like his skill set. I mean, he's support. I mean, that's his skill set. But he knew we were just so kind of. I was even going to be the Princess Bee of the English hive because that's how kind of low we are. But we finally found Danish crypto. He's stepping in. He's learning. We also have a new Princess Bee in the French hive. So I just want to thank Bishop for his work. And so we're on our third Princess Bee for the French hive. So it's difficult kind of just getting these new Princess Bees kind of up to speed with everything that we're doing. And yeah, and so like I said, 11 solid hives and then we have like 3 other hives that are under construction. That's a Portuguese hive, an Israeli hive, and Swahili. So Swahili is like our last kind of major language that we don't have yet. And that's it's been, I've interviewed 3 people for the Swahili hive, and it just hasn't worked out yet. But that's like the kind of the last major one that I want. And then there's gonna be no more hives like this. We have plenty. And so and I know it's kind of long-winded, but we're coming out with other stuff too. And we're chugging along, and it's still great waking up every day and running EOS Bees, and hopefully we'll make it to the promised land eventually.
So with the Swahili Hive, how many will that be?
Well, Swahili is a major language in the world, and I think it could be one of our top like hives in terms of quantity, like of our scout bees. Yeah, it could be big, but we just don't have a leader yet.
But how many languages will that make it? If you say that's the final one you're trying to get, well, it'll bring
that's
the
so
total
14.
number.
14.
14. Cool. Epic. All right, cool. Chris Barnes.
Yo, let's see. Update. The biggest relatable thing, the My Vote EOS campaign, soft launch, still soft, and we're ramping it up next week with really rolling out the website, which you can go to now, but it was just being tweaked, myvoteeos.com. And yeah, we've got some BPs. We've got 8 or 9 BPs signed up to the pledge already, and some different EOS groups that are supportive of the initiative and sort of what it stands for. And yeah, the website has this option where you can, if you want to tweet to your exchange of choice, you can tweet to them. You can kind of hit a button, it'll automatically set up the tweet. You can just send it, and it's basically, hey, exchange, we would like you to allow your token holders to vote. You shouldn't be voting on their behalf. You should be custodying tokens, sure, but you shouldn't be making political decisions or governance decisions on a site, on a chain, to pick the other block producers. It's obviously way more truncated because it's Twitter, but that's sort of the message that can be there. So hopefully that comes out more prominently next week, and it'll be another sort of initiative and for those who care, it's a sentiment thing. Not everyone cares. And I understand I missed part of the fireside chat yesterday, but I heard that there was a comment repeated a few times that EOS doesn't have a block producer problem. And I think that, definitions of problems there's a lot of nuance that can go into that word. So, I mean, maybe it's not a problem, but it certainly, there might be a sentiment problem that's related to block producers. So I guess it depends on the definition of what a problem is. And how you'd apply that. But yeah, that's basically the update. So hopefully there's more I'll be able to talk about next week with that campaign.
Very cool. Thanks for the update. Aaron.
Hello. I guess a quick comment on that. I tried to say something yesterday about that problem, quote unquote. And I the more I just keep thinking about it, I know we're getting out of updates, but it's like, I really think we need to separate governance and block production like that, because yeah, I won't get into it, but something that I think many of us are passionate about, and there is something there that needs to change. Anyways, without rambling way off topic and jumping into that, on our side, we started code reviews of the protocol upgrades that are needed for the account creation protocol to make this onboarding tool really a reality. We, in one of our calls, I think on Monday, did a kind of deep dive into it and started reviewing how the data is organized, what the data is for, how we document it. And we found some changes that we need to make, and maybe ways that we need to reorganize how the code works. So Daniel on my team is doing some of that this week, and we're going to touch base again next Monday to see where that's at. And those are going to result in the libraries that applications are going to be able to use to integrate account creation through our side, and hopefully other wallets will adopt the protocols. So that way it's not just Anchor, and hopefully other account creation providers, I guess. There's probably some name for this new thing. Like, hopefully other account creating services will also adopt the protocol. So that way it's not gray mass creating the accounts for other wallets as well. Like, we want this to be accessible to anybody to use through like any wallet and any account creation provider, because some people can't use some wallets and some people may not be able to use some account creation services. So being able to provide variety in both of those is going to be hugely important, and it shouldn't just all depend upon us. So we're looking to be able to at least offer the initial service for those that are compatible with both our wallet and our purchase flow. But others should be able to adopt this standard and run with it. So that way it is kind of this unified thing that we can use for any application to be able to onboard users. So it doesn't get rid of the hurdle of cost, obviously. Cost is the best abuse mechanism we could ask for. Just because anytime you try to make it free, then you've got to police the whole thing. But it should also be compatible with free mechanisms should somebody solve the abuse problem as well. So we're looking forward to being able to release that. And we should also have an integration directly into Unicove alongside this. That's our test bed. So looking forward to that.
Quick comment on that. The abuse and like the cost. Randall and I have been working on a referral system where the support agents qualify leads coming in. And if they're qualified, then the community can fund a rewards pool to cover the cost of account creation. So I'm excited. Almost next week, we'll share some more details. I've been writing, been taking advantage of the ENF feedback. And so I've been writing up like an article and yeah, we'll share that soon.
Awesome. And I know I've given you guys both batches of codes, and we're starting to do that with some other applications now. I don't know if I should talk about any of them or not, but we're also looking for systems to make that so that I don't have to give you something, that you can go get something. And then these systems can be integrated in new ways that we haven't seen before, and you can either get a huge batch for free or buy a batch that's closer to at cost. We really just need to make this whole system easier. And like, if there is going to be a cost always, because there's a cost on the blockchain and somebody has to subsidize that. But if we can make it so that the end user doesn't get hit with that cost and some intermediary in between gets hit with it, even if it's gray mass, like that's cool. We just, like on our end, we just don't want to be the police in the system that it has to watch for abuse. We don't have the staff for that right now.
You really seem
Maybe
like
someday.
the police kind of crew anyway, so.
No, it's not fun.
Lately I've just been being the person trying to make peace with everybody behind the scenes. I feel like just trying to create lines of communication where there seems to be difficulty with communication, and just, you know, help people see the value in communication and all those fun things. I was really, well, we'll get into that later, but other than that, doing some video stuff, and yeah, just really happy Chuck has been on these videos. Yeah, ENF stuff, we're just clipping along. That's the other thing that just completely is occupying me right now, writing a lot, and there's a lot of information to process. So yeah, I have thoughts that I want to share, but they're going to spill over into non-specific updatey personal stuff, even though it's stuff that's personal. So I think the first thing that was suggested that we talk about is API Plus. Jesse, you said maybe we should try to break that down a little bit for the layperson, or more
Yeah.
so, a little less technical.
Yeah, if I can lead this section, I just have a couple, two questions I have for Aaron and maybe John, for Aaron. I think it'd be cool to give your 30-second elevator pitch of what an API is.
Sure.
Well, it stands for Application Programming Interface, and I'll let Aaron do the rest.
It's funny because the blue paper actually has a section about that. It's like 2 paragraphs where it actually like defines what they are. But I think that the 30-second pitch is that when your computer needs to talk to another computer, it does so through what's called an API. It's a way for your computer to both send and receive information from a server somewhere, most likely on the internet. And it's how we both read and write to the blockchain in the EOS.IO space. So there are some trust issues on some of those sides, and there's still some unresolvable problems, but in general, that's what they're used for.
Like we talk to computers by typing into keyboards and pressing buttons, and then that's how our input. But how does my server talk to Aaron's server? What's the kind of language or that they use together? And so essentially, Aaron's server will have an application programming interface, and he basically says, "Hey, this is how you can talk to my server," and then from that I can then design my requests or how I talk to it accordingly. So Violet Garden has a API, and behind the API is a database of everyone's posts. And so when you load up Violet Garden, the web page, your browser will then do what's called a post request, and that goes to my API. And then from my API, it will send back the data back down to the web browser. But yeah, there's plenty of different APIs and methods of doing it. And again, there's fetching data, doing transactions on things, and even APIs and stuff for the iPhone. Like if you're an iOS developer, you would use the Apple iOS camera API. And so if you want to take a photo, if you're writing an app that needs to take a photo, they would say this is the API, this is how you're meant to use that camera, or use whatever service that they're providing.
So is it accurate analogy to say that it's a keyboard between computers?
Kind of.
Yeah.
And a screen too. If we're using the keyboard as the input analogy, the computer's also gotta have a screen so it can read the information coming back. So in a very roundabout way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a series of buttons that another computer can press. So if you want to create a post on Violet Garden, press this button. If you want to do take a photo, press that button, kind of thing. And then here's any additional information that the button requires to happen. Yeah.
So the DApp or the app has a computer, and then the blockchain is a computer. So those are the 2 computers that are interacting through this API. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing, I just wanted to share the thing that I think I'm most excited about from the API Plus paper. So for me, using the EOS blockchain is great, except for this one thing, which is these when I do, and I think this has to do with this. So I'm going to be asking about this transaction lifestyle thing that
life cycle.
Yeah, life cycle. Yeah.
I like lifestyle though.
Yeah, lifestyle.
That's awesome.
So when I do a transaction and it says success, and I click that link, it says like deferred transaction. And sometimes I have to wait like 30 seconds and then it comes up. And when I was reading like the transaction lifecycle, like problem and solution, I was thinking, oh, is that going to solve this? And so that's my question.
In some circumstances, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It is ways to both on the front end and the back end make sure that what you're trying to do is successful. It is kind of it's a safeguard, because realistically, like it should just work. Like we shouldn't need this kind of extra stuff. But being in this cutting edge technology, like things do go wrong. Like nobody's ever done the things we're doing before. So there are going to be like, you did something some very specific way and then bug. like something blocked you. So what this proposal offers is a way for the APIs to kind of intelligently retry. It offers a way for the application that you're using to actually wait to confirm that the transaction was successful rather than just telling you it was, when it really in reality isn't. And it gives you ways that before you actually submit that transaction, it can detect if there's going to be a problem with it. So when we say transaction lifecycle, it is from the moment that you decide you want to do something to the moment that it is complete. There's a bunch of steps in the middle, and this proposal has 4 different things that in theory should really help from point A to point D or whatever is going on. So until we have like a perfect system, we kind of need these rails to make sure that things are going to be successful. And that's what this proposal is.
Yeah, and just for me, it almost always eventually goes through without me having to do the transaction again. Very rarely does it missed completely, but
Yeah.
So
It does. It
I
does
think of
miss
that
completely
request.
sometimes.
what?
Yeah. From my understanding, it basically when the node accepts it, it doesn't, it basically looks at it and says, yeah, this should be good. And then it will send you back the, transaction, hash as if it will be. It doesn't actually wait around, first put it onto blockchain, make sure that it's all, accepted by the rest of the nodes, and then say, it's good. So it's a little bit optimistic, I think, when it happens. And in most cases it works. So, it's fine. But there are cases where it, goes to shit. Or again, you want to wait for a confirmation as well, or irreversibility too, which is irreversibility is something that you're going to wait for things external from the chain. So stuff like if you sell your house, kind of thing, like don't hand over the keys to the house until you get irreversibility on the block that the transaction was done, kind of thing.
Cool. And then my last question, if I could ask specifically about Anchor, I think this probably has to do with something in the API plus blue paper. But when I know that I don't have CPU or net and I post a transaction, I'm expecting Anchor to prompt me to pay a transaction fee. And when it does it, it's great. And I'm okay with paying 0.001 EOS for a lot of stuff. And I assume like that's kind of the business model, or one of the business models of Anchor, that you're charging a fee. Maybe there's a little arbitrage of what you're actually paying for that transaction on the back end. But I assume that something in this API plus blue paper will make it so it's just more accurate. Like every time that I don't have it, that I'll get prompted for that fee.
It'll help. I think some of the stuff coming out in the Wallet Plus paper will potentially be more impactful to helping that. The issues over the last couple of days have been kind of a weird alignment of stars that has happened in the past, but it's been a couple months since it's happened, where there have been hiccups, almost 24 hours immediately, like after each other, where our rental system ran out of resources and couldn't recover. So Fuel in the past like 24 to 48 hours, the instances where it hasn't done it is because it knew it couldn't, because the account itself didn't have the resources to do those things. So we're working on resolving that. But one of the things, like the transaction lifecycle that we were just talking about, those improvements will help the accuracy of these systems and the reliability of these systems. And the Wallet Plus, the SDKs we're going to be proposing in there are essentially the version 2 of the tools we're using to make that possible. And these tools will be available for more than just Anchor. So if you're using a ledger directly, if you're using Scatter or Token Pocket or MyKey or any of these other EOS wallets, you will still be able to use that same like fee model alongside of it, because it'll be a part of these SDKs now instead of a part of Anchor's SDKs. The only reason they're a part of Anchor's SDKs right now is because the SDKs everybody uses can't support this type of logic. So we're proposing kind of a shift in SDKs, and the justification in that proposal in the paper uses what you're describing as the actual, here's the problem we want to solve. We want to make sure everybody can get resources in an easy way and reduce the complexity of using these chains. So I'm really happy that that transaction lifecycle proposal is kind of getting legs, and a lot of people are excited about that. And I really hope that just as many people, when the wallet paper comes out in whenever it is, like the next week or two, will be just as excited about the new SDKs, because it solves some of the same problems.
Cool. Yeah, I'm done with my questions. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. Any other questions?
Oh,
I'm
I had an
fishing
API
for 'em.
question. I lost it. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Cool. It is a dense and boring topic. So, I mean, it's important. I mean, that was part of the fireside yesterday. It's like, how do we make this exciting?
Okay, well, here's a segue. I'll
Do
let
it.
you decide where it segues to. Maybe this is something you were talking about earlier, but in this network, in the EOS network, whose responsibility is it to provide API services, and what have you proposed in the blue paper to accomplish that? I've read it, so I know, but
Yeah.
I want to hear in your words.
All right. Traditionally, it's been the block producers, which kind of goes back to I guess you could call that one of the problems with block production right now, is that it is not all block producers offer really robust APIs. A lot of them offer APIs, but they're not to the same scale as some of the others. But there's really no incentive to do that. Like the amount of effort it takes to actually run a sufficient API, and when you weigh that against like what a block producer earns, like the incentives are just really misaligned right now. There's a few proposals in the API Plus paper, one of them being the central API, which would be, hey, let's have the network start an organization of some kind, or like a conglomeration of people in the community to run like a really professional API that is publicly available, that reduces the need for block producers to run it. Obviously, we'd still want block producers to run their own, because the more the better. But if this would be a way for all of the block producers and the network to come together and mutually fund one really strong offering for the network. In the research we were looking at, there's a lot of chains that do this. The most notable being like Ethereum and Infura. Infura is like what all Ethereum developers use. There's a few others as well that I think have gained traction, but it is a turnkey solution that a developer can just be like, bam, I have an API I can use, and I can actually start working on my application. And it's going to be up.
Quick sidebar, it was, I think, revealed today that JP Morgan is actually one of the huge investors in Infura.
Oh, damn.
Interestingly enough.
Yeah. A financial
is there a centralization risk? Like how does Infura address, or is it just that's not concerned in that?
There is a concern about centralization. I mean, you see that with OpenSea, and the whole like my NFT got censored sort of thing. There are risks associated to that, and it's still an option to go run your own, obviously. And there are other companies that don't block it, but it's really the use case and like the dependency, like what your tolerance for that risk is.
So yeah, I mean, having Infura doesn't mean there's no value in having other APIs. It's just
Right.
The incentives aren't quite aligned in such a way to structure it to promote more APIs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe the solution is that instead of just the network funding one, like maybe they fund 5. And then that kind of mitigates the risk of centralization.
The one thing that stood out to me, you mentioned, you said BPs don't earn enough to do their own APIs.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's an opportunity to improve that. That would be one of the outcomes of the My Vote By campaign is if there's enough votes that are available for free, then that makes it potentially more economical for BPs to have more revenue, a bottom line that they could direct towards API.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like, it's not an either or. It's like, yeah, ENF should absolutely support an alternative to Infura. But we should also be willing to consider that if there's a way to structure BP pay to also encourage them to as well and demand it. It should be demanded of the top 21 that they have a functional, proper, at least a Hyperion node, like a full history node. It's not that much to run that. It's expensive because of the size. It's apparently like 15 terabytes. So I've found out. But that should be encouraged, even though it may not be like, so that it just seems, it's interesting.
Yeah.
How many BPs are cloud hosted? Or like on the same thing? Like
everybody running AWS.
I don't think many people run on cloud hosting. It's unless you consider like dedicated server rentals to be quote unquote cloud hosting, because it's an unambiguous term. History is a hard one to tackle. And just before I forget this, one of the hard parts about having BPs do the APIs is running an API is kind of a different skill set than running a block producer. A block producer is relatively easy to operate. And like, once you have the knowledge, like it should just run, and there's very little deviation in the amount of like load it takes. Whereas on APIs, like if there's a wax card pack sale or whatever, there's huge spikes in API traffic that need to be, you need to be ready to handle. On the block producer side, that's less of a concern. On the API side, it's quite the heavy concern. But I think this goes to one of the other proposals in the API Plus paper is to build a decentralized model to incentivize API hosting. It would be like, I think the graph does this in some ways, where like you get paid to host this data. Like there is an incentivization model to create API operators. And I think it's the 5th proposal in API Plus is to basically form a group to really dive deep into that and figure out if we can align the incentives somehow to get people to run APIs, and based on their performance and based on kind of their reputation, that they get rewarded for that. And it is enough to make sure that like there's this self-sustaining back and forth that is now detached from the block producers. And you can just have like, we would have block producers, and then we'd have this other system of quote unquote API operators. Like if that's possible, then we could we wouldn't have the differing of technical abilities. Like block producers wouldn't need to be API operators, and API operators wouldn't need to be block producers. But that would be an alternative to the centralized model.
Is a block producer a better block producer, like they boots on the ground technicians, if they also have a depth of experience in running API nodes? Does that help them become a better BP, or are they just entirely separated, where it's actually better to separate that knowledge base?
It's a really good question. I think the overlap is probably good. It's either that or they really need some tight coordination. Because I know, like on EOS, for example, we are a block producer, but we are not producing blocks. Like when we route transactions from our APIs to our block production nodes, but we never produce blocks. So we don't, like, that chain is not, we're not fully responsible for accepting and then minting transactions, I guess. So when we get transactions and then they kind of go off into the ether, we have to ask the block producers. It's like, okay, we accepted it and we relayed it into the network. What happened on your side? And if we were also a block producer, we'd arguably be able to kind of trace that a little bit better. But at that point, like I kind of mentioned earlier, you kind of need both of those skill sets. So I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, I see the benefit in both, but good communication could potentially also overcome that hurdle. Which actually in the past 24 hours we've seen with the block producers. Like I'm in a WeChat channel with a number of block producers, and that channel's just been lighting up because I think it was yesterday during the fireside, there was some sort of account spamming the network that was causing, I think like 2 or 3 block producers to just have empty blocks for some reason. It wasn't that their node wasn't running. It's just that something weird was going on in the peer-to-peer network and the routing was not like giving them transactions to put inside of blocks. So I don't know if them being an API operator would have resolved that issue, but there is communication that's going on. And like, I think that's been resolved now. I have like 43 messages in WeChat that I haven't caught up on yet.
I have a question that might spill us further over into the weeds on a lot of this BP stuff, but my brain got turning about it. I was just thinking, well, somebody asked about cloud and hosting. So then the other question is, how many BPs are running bare metal infrastructure? And then my further in the weeds question on that is, early on at the beginning, at the genesis of the network, there was an idea that there would be like a good geographical distribution of BPs around the world, for the sake of decentralization and resiliency of the network, and even speed to some extent. Whatever happened to that idea, and do you think that idea is still important, of geographical distribution? Yeah, so bare metal then.
In today's world, with everything that's going on, probably geographic distribution would be good. I think we do have a pretty good geographical distribution of where they are. There is there's an effort to make sure that not all of the BPs who don't own their hardware, they make sure that they're not all in the same data center. Like we don't want like the AWS outages that you see hit the news and all these websites go down. If that were to happen in a data center where BPs were hosting servers, we don't want to lose like 4 BPs all at once. So BPs do very like thoughtfully, there's probably a better word for that, but they consider where they're putting their operations. I mean, if you go one level higher than that, the way we do it is in year 1 of EOS, when we actually were a top 21 BP, pretty much all of our rewards went into actually buying our own sort of like hardware, and we leased a data center to install all of that hardware. So I think we spent like 120 grand or something, and just really loaded up the rack so we could do history and block production and a whole bunch of like advanced stuff. And that was what our Pomelo grant in season 1 was about, was like, we're expanding. We have our first data center in Michigan. The next one, which is running, is in Vancouver. So now we have 2 geographically distinct locations, thousands of miles away from each other. And that, you know, provides anti-fragility or resiliency or something that prevents failure.
How does that provide anti-fragility?
I don't know, maybe it was a bad choice of words.
I think resiliency is probably a better.
The network's going to be fragile if it's all located in one place and that one place goes down.
If you don't have both, it'll be proved to be pretty fragile.
It makes it stronger, but it doesn't make it anti-fragile.
True.
It doesn't meet one of the requirements of anti-fragility anyway. But
why work on WeChat?
It's a good question. I don't know, why work on Telegram? I hate Telegram with a burning passion.
Yeah, but like out of all instant messages, isn't WeChat, you know, the worst in terms of government surveillance and, you know, that
depends
shit?
on who you ask. I mean, isn't Telegram owned by like a Russian oligarch or
I'm
something?
not saying Telegram's great, but
Or
I'm
no,
not
that's
like,
Discord.
but in comparison, like if you had to rank them, like wouldn't WeChat be at the bottom of the list?
I have
Well,
no idea.
I mean,
John, he feels like you're being a little nitpicky right now.
well, there's, yeah, I mean,
I
like,
don't know. I think
we're-
it's somewhat important, you know, communication wise. Like, you know, if we're centralizing communications on servers, you know, run by the Chinese government, then it's a bit iffy. Like, you
well, I
know,
don't think
it's
we're-
hard to.
Did
It's
you
hard
say
to.
if we're centralizing communication? It's not like all our communication is going WeChat.
Yeah,
We happen to communicate with a certain subset.
But if
of
Aaron
community
is
members.
dependent on it, or he's using that as a method of communicating with BPs or whatever it might be, then yeah.
I bet they have a
it's not-
backup.
Do they?
I don't know. You could probably use email.
The VPs
mean,
always
email
seem
is-
to have a backup.
Yeah. All of the chat programs we use are terrible. I mean, that they all have these. Again, it's just pick your poison. They're all
Yeah,
bad.
they all have trade-offs, but yeah, I'm surprised. You know,
Jesse, you're muted.
WeChat's still going to be at the bottom of the list for, you know, candidates.
Well, when is Fractally gonna
Yeah.
release Clarion OS and
What's the
save us all from the
Alternative. Well, you got Signal, you got Matrix, you've got Session's Australian too. It's pretty cool. It, like, you know, bounces your messages through like a sort of onion routing system as well. And then, you know, it's like sort of public key done, so it doesn't require like your mobile number and stuff like that. So you can remain pseudo anonymous. Like,
You
I don't know.
You gotta find an app that is not blocked in most countries. And I think like Telegram's blocked in a lot of countries. I know Signal's blocked in a lot of countries. WeChat is not blocked.
Oh, why's that?
Yeah, because governments are overreaching.
Yeah, so with centralized communications on the overreaching government server,
I mean,
it just doesn't come across as very decentralized to me, that we use the most centralized of all instant messages in the world for a decentralized, you know, community.
in turn, I could say we are using the most centralized video conferencing software in the world to do these calls and to do Eden and to do Fractally. Like,
yeah,
we got to create the better things so we can stop using these technologies. And until then, we just got to like bear through it. I don't want to use them. I don't want to use Google. Google's like one of the worst offenders in a lot of this stuff. They know everything about me and they sell that. But I have a Gmail account. I use Hangouts. This world is crazy.
I've been slowly migrating away from Google, and it's a lot of work, you know.
It
It's
is.
like, it's very difficult to extract yourself.
It is.
It's not for the faint of heart, but it is doable. And
Let's give them credit for what they've accomplished. I mean, the fact that it's that
Yeah.
hard, that means they're doing something that the rest of us aren't. If that's what we don't want.
Yeah.
again, I encourage everyone to listen to Dr. Robert Epstein's interviews and testimonies before Congress about Google. It's totally horrifying. But yeah, I mean,
Scary.
and Discord is the same model as Google. They're siphoning data and sell, like, we're the product, basically.
Yep.
You know, spying for free.
So is Telegram.
Telegram, like, yeah, we're like in a freaking web. I mean, I wish. Okay, so here's you know,
Rapid
here's-
warning. Just want to say,
What?
if we want, I just want to give a rabbit hole warning. That's
Rabbit
just-
hole warning. Well, I want to throw out one other alternative. I don't know if anyone, like, we used to use it at EOS Detroit, which is Keybase. You know, Keybase has been bought by Zoom, but prior to that, the software, like, it has chat, it has channels, you can share files, it's end-to-end encrypted. Seemingly it was, you know, it was pretty good. I don't know that Zoom has, I think Zoom bought it so they could have the tech to improve their own security nightmare that they had going on. But I thought Keybase was awesome before that, and I was really surprised when they got dragged into like Telegram and other rabbit holes like that. Christopher
Yeah.
Barnes entered the waiting room. Who are you? Are you subatomic particle? What's going on? Oh my
Remember,
god, there's two of them.
It shouldn't echo.
Last
Yeah,
up.
no, I'm going to leave my office, but I'm going to stay on the call on my phone. That's all.
Cool.
All right, well, we're tracking you, so we'll know where you be and who you're interacting with. We have proximity detectors, so don't think you're fooling anybody, Chris. Oh, sorry, see interference.
That was an echo. Yeah.
so there was something about fractally that I wanted to talk about. I shared this idea with you guys in our private channel. But I just want to kind of just get it out there in the community and kind of get feedback, see what else thinks. So this is in regards to the inflation. So Aaron kind of pointed out our last call, we have like these three buckets. We have the system changes, the inflation, and the actual like application, the content of the application. So this is about the inflation. And from what I understand, the proposal from the Fractally team is to have one prime fractal that speaks English. And I see that as a very challenging ask because the BPs are mostly in the East. So we're essentially asking the BPs in the East to fund Western speaking people who are going to earn these inflation rewards because you have to speak English to earn them. And I feel like I'm in a unique situation to kind of think about these things because I'm running an organization where we're coordinating languages, and that's what we're trying to do here. So my proposal is to have 3 root fractals for our 3 major languages, Chinese, Korean, and English. And we use objective metrics to reward or to increase and or decrease the inflation that goes to these 3 fractals. So this is what I do with the bees. We start even. So we would, whatever the number is, whatever the inflation is, we split it through evenly. And the metric that we use is this, the DeFi scheme, the MR token. So if, for example, if the, let's say English and Korean hive are kind of showing respect to one another because they're doing great things in their fractal, and the Chinese hive is just kind of, I don't want to accuse, like maybe they're sitting on their wares, like they're, I get from the Chinese hive that there's like very, very negative and disappointing feelings from the participation in the ICO, and Dan had pointed that out. So perhaps there's a situation where the English and the Korean are MRing, and that would mean more allocation of inflation to those prime fractals. And so starting even, using objective metrics, I think would be a much more attractive ask to the BPs.
Yeah, well, I think I said in the Telegram chat, I think that's a bad objective metric. I'm not against the idea of 3 different fractals, but again, whoever is doing that inflationary, or whoever's doing the subsidizing needs to rebalance accordingly. Otherwise, you're just giving a free ride to the lazy fractal, while one or the other is doing the work and contributing the value. But yeah, the mutual respect measurement won't really work, I don't think.
Wait, hold on. So you're talking about a potential arbitrage opportunity, right? Between,
yeah.
But how could I arbitrage in the Chinese fractal? I don't speak Chinese. How could I join that fractal?
But you don't need to. You just need to invest in it.
Right, after the fact. I can buy the Chinese fractals respect token.
Yep.
But I'm contributing. I don't see that as like an unfair arbitrage. I'm contributing to that fractal. I'm hodling, and I deserve so because I'm spending I'm incurring an opportunity cost by buying those respect tokens.
Yeah, but you're
And-
still not like again, why what's the point of subsidizing a fractal if they're not going to do anything? Well, if they didn't do anything, like there's financial incentive to still invest in it, but it's about the value that community behind the fractal is delivering. So if they're still not delivering actual value to the community that is worth subsidizing in the first place, then it's not worth subsidizing.
Okay, so this is the get hit by the bus argument, essentially. What are the chances that if we give the Chinese community respect and we're starting all even, that they're going to do nothing? Like,
I don't think they'll do nothing, but again, someone needs to be some sort of judge as to how much you give it. Maybe the Chinese do more than the English, but then the Koreans don't do as much. Like, who's going to judge that? And then it's going to be a political. It's going to be very politically hard for one party to do it, like say the ENF, because as soon as they do, then that community is going to hate them, kind of thing. So if you did it with a prime fractal,
hold on a second. Back up a second. I'm missing something. Either that or you guys are missing something. But like, isn't it really obvious to tell which fractal would have the most economic activity and apportion resources accordingly? Like, if you have 300 members in your group and you're doing X number of operations and X number of whatever, like, clearly you're up to something. And that's one objective measure of value. Like, shouldn't you just apportion inflation based on activity instead of, like, I don't even know what the original suggestion from Jesse was.
No, so that is essentially what I'm suggesting. The English, for example, hold on. The English and Chinese, let's say for the Chinese hive, the English and Korean hive will see the activity of the Chinese hive. They can see what's going on by what you just said, Lovejoy, by the transactions or whatever. And if they like it, they can MR the Chinese hive. And if they do so, then they get more inflation. If they don't, they lose inflation. But anyways, it's just an idea. Just throw an idea out there that I thought made sense.
Well, to me, what Lovejoy said, he did it more based on people activity. So like how many people, rocking up to the weekly meetings and, how many members that they have, not so much what the MR status is or, how much liquidity they've accumulated in their relay.
I would support that too. It's also an objective metric. I'm just trying to use objective metrics to reward and or penalize an inflation allocation.
It almost seems like it could be programmatic. Like,
but
John, what would be your suggestion?
Well, that's why the prime fractal's there, and so that basically the council members of the prime fractal can then invest accordingly there, and it's kind of decided at that level. Again, you can delegate the decider to another level, which is the ENF, like Jesse's doing, but it's just that the ENF would then have to make that judgment on it, and then provide subsidies according to the value of each one. Weren't you suggesting that each three get equal subsidies, and then after that, then they can make a judgment with your objective measurement based on the liquidity accumulated in each relay?
Yeah, but you just said the ENF is making a judgment. The ENF's not making any judgment. It's even, and then it's judged by objective metrics.
Yeah, but I thought, okay, so it's purely those metrics forever.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a terrible idea to me, because you got to subsidize a fractal based on the community behind it and the value that they deliver, not by how much liquidity they've been able to throw into a pool. That's just some DeFi thing. You don't even need fractaling for that. You may as well just create a relay with nothing to do with fractal.
Can that be multilingual?
Well, if you had a multilingual fractal, how the hell do you talk in weekly meetings?
No, I'm talking about people that can speak English and at the same time speak another language, right? So we are going to speak in English, but they can also speak Chinese and they can speak Korean. So all three of them is just like how we have for Eden. So
Are you saying that the people in these weekly meetings should speak 3 languages?
No, I'm saying the language is going to be in English, right? But the people who are there, they are bilingual, right? So if it's a Chinese person, the Chinese person can speak English as well. And if it's the Korean person, the Korean person can speak English.
Yeah, but are they bilingual or trilingual?
They're bilingual.
Okay, so we're talking Chinese and English then, not the Koreans?
But the Koreans can also speak English. So English is going to be the central language. But we
Okay, so
speak English.
Huh?
Only a minority of Koreans can speak English.
I think the problem.
But that's better than having only people who can speak English and only people who are from Western countries to be in a fractal. That in itself is going to be a problem.
Well,
Yeah, that's where I was just going to drive it is like Jesse started this with offering a solution to a problem, but we never actually talked about the problem. And the problem, I think, is that inflation just can't go to the speakers of one language. Like that's EOS is a global blockchain and needs to be able to support all languages. So this is a problem, and I don't know that anybody's really brought up a solution that we know works, seeing as how we're all kind of going back and forth right now on it. But identifying that as the problem is that it needs to be able to be fair based on language is something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and for it to be a public good, there shouldn't be any rivalry between the languages.
Well, I like the idea of having different language fractals where, it's just like there's an official language. And if you can speak it well enough, you can be part of it. And then we just have multiple prime fractals or multiple like co-equal fractals that, I feel like the whole thing is driving towards the democracy of democracy thing where you would have, I keep going here, but it just seems like the obvious conclusion is multiple languages that have fractals that all then elect people to go to like a council that is comprised of basically like United Nations, and it's one person from each language or 2 people from each language. And they all have, at that point, at that scale, real-time translation in their ears. When one person talks, everyone gets it in their own language. And that's how the whole thing is. That's the only way to orchestrate that at that level. And until we get to that point, we need to, have individual fractals and languages that we're competent in, and then figure out a way to build that up to the point where we get there and we get to the UN scale.
So did we discuss how the inflation is going to be allocated? Like who is going to be directing the inflation? Because if inflation goes to a bucket, right? It doesn't connect directly to, it's not going to directly connect to a prime fractal or whatever that it is, right? Someone has to allocate the inflation. Did we ever get to that? Or?
Well, that's what Jesse was talking about, or Jesse and John and I were talking about, is like how do you determine what portion of inflation goes to each fractal respectively?
And to further complicate it, oh, sorry, go for it.
Well, to me, it's just like, I don't know. Maybe I don't understand the nuances, but it seems like it should be obvious who's the most active, or proportionally, like of all activity, you should be able to break it up into percentages. Like they comprise 23% of all activity. They comprise 48% of all activity. They, and so forth, and just apportion the.
So there's going to be an entity who is sitting there, and then that entity will decide that, okay, based on the activity, right, objective activity, this is how much inflation we have to stick to that.
Smart contract, not an entity. It's just smart contract. Like
it could just be programmatic. Yeah.
We do this at the bees. We don't have a smart contract, but we have activity points. We have certain work types. There's a certain amount of points, and hives get rewarded. Like they get an increased bonus or a less bonus, depending on how active they are, based on their activity points.
So we have to write a smart contract. That's what you're saying. We have to write a smart contract to direct the inflation from Okay, got it.
I think that's my idea. Yeah.
There's a lot of things that need to be done, because I mean, we can't even direct inflation at this point, which is something Eve brings up a lot. It's impossible to put it anywhere at this point. So we not only do we need to implement that to make this a reality, but we need to figure out how it's split between languages. And the thing I was going to also add that muddies the water up a little bit is that if BP selection is something to be considered, which languages choose the VPs? Like, the language issue itself is a huge problem that needs to be addressed in how this exists on a multilingual network. Like, we don't need necessarily to communicate when we're talking about block producers. I mean, we do. That's a murky subject, but when we're talking about tokenomics, like that one, you know, the language of value translates very easily across all languages. It translates into our native currencies.
Can we get Gray to help us a little bit more with this? Right?
Need to do that, yeah.
Yeah, we can just put Gray in charge of where the inflation goes.
I don't think we'd like the answers.
Like,
Come up with
what's
some
this?
crazy stuff.
What's this fuckhorse community that's getting all the inflation? I don't understand.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that the discussion we're having about languages is definitely something that does need to be solved. This, especially if the EOS network or maybe even like a bigger EOS.io initiative is what drives this, is it needs to support multiple languages, because the network is not English. It's not just one language. We're all speaking English on this call, but we're a subset. And that's why we see things like the Chinese Eden starting up and things like that. It's like, how do we bridge all of these languages? It's not an easy problem to solve.
Yeah, well, I don't know, a common language would make this life a lot easier.
Yeah.
So
with those Babel fish or whatever that you can put in your ear.
So what?
Yeah.
So what about what about if?
John, what is it called?
sorry, what was the question?
You support a common global language. I just can't remember the name.
Esperanto. So it's like a language comprised of many sort of European languages in one, and it's designed to be very easy for everyone to learn, and you know, create less friction when talking to, you know, many diverse
So
backgrounds.
what about this? What about we create the software? It's open source. Now each language can pick it up and do whatever the heck they want, and then people can go to whoever they have to go to, the council that we have, and ask for inflation, and the council will decide how much inflation you get.
What are you on about?
You know what I'm saying? So to make it easier, right?
Not really. But
So let me bring it back to this. Let's say you have the ENF, right? And then we have
Correct,
an open source software, which is built by a team called Fractally, right? The Chinese
Sure.
community can take it and spin it up. The Korean community can take it and spin it up. The English community can take it and spin it up. If you need inflation for your community, your leaders will go to the ENF and, you know, talk about why you need it. They will look at the community and they will decide how much inflation you get based on the objective measures they're looking for.
yeah, well, the ENF can if they want to put in that time and administration into it. Yeah, the discussion is what metrics exactly should they use, or should it just be up to that their opinion based on the value that comes up, and it's a bit more subjective.
Yeah, it has to be subjective, just like how we are working on subjective proof of value, right? So it's going to be subjective as well. So they will sit there and be like, based on what we think, we are going to reach a consensus to give you this because we think this is the value you guys bring. It's
Gotta
the
have
same
a
thing,
meeting.
we're reaching consensus.
And rank each other.
Yeah. I think whatever that we are doing, we have to always remember we are building consensus. So whatever that we are going to be doing for the fractals has to be the same thing the prime fractal is supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be the same thing that the team that started this whole thing is supposed to be doing. So we shouldn't forget that we are building consensus. So the person that even starts this whole thing has to also start with building consensus, because we are all looking at things from our subjective point of view. So we have to reach a decision at some point. We have to negotiate, right? So anything that we would do that would make someone say no, we don't want to do. We want to make sure that we are negotiating. Okay, we have three primary languages. How can we negotiate so that we can get all three languages, you know, a fair shake? Then we have to reach consensus on that. Then we have to reach consensus on whatever comes after.
Yeah, well, if you have the ENF, you know, to decide the subsidies, put, you know, going towards each fractal, then that could work. Hopefully that, you know, they're neutral enough, and then, you know, one language isn't favored over another, you know, for political reasons rather than
Or maybe
so
we
much,
can
you know,
run
value that's actually coming out.
we can run an eating type of system to pick the leaders, and those leaders will just be there, and they will sit there and just maybe every week or every 2 weeks decide.
I mean, you got the same problem because Eden's English, so you're going to create a Chinese Eden, Korean Eden. You're going back to the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, the language problem. Yeah, that's true.
But again, everyone. I don't know why you know. I don't know why we're pushing decentralization and, you know, creating a better world. Like, why isn't everyone also learning Esperanto? It seems so logical to me. Start learning it. Get on it.
Well, that's a real roundabout way of solving this problem. If only we could just force the entire world to learn Esperanto. Meanwhile, we lose languages. The last speaker of the next language just died, and like a concept that can no longer be described because there's no one around to give voice to it. It's just gone forever.
Nah, on day one, the language came out. It was always designed to be second language. Old mate, like the guy that made it, never wanted to replace anything.
I'm not saying Esperanto killed those languages, because Esperanto hasn't been particularly successful, but I'm saying it picked up, but then Hitler came along and killed anyone that spoke it, and, you know, that kind of that'll dampen some initiatives. We think we got problems in EOS, so let's talk about what Esperanto's been through.
We're not far away from having like real-time captions in chat, you know. I bet within the next year or so we probably have real-time captioning of multiple languages.
Even then, I don't think it's good enough. I want to like walk into an elevator and, you know, see some Asian person or whatever, and then, you know, if they can't speak good English, just, you know, bust out Esperanto and, you know, trust that they can speak it. I think that'd be way better for human interaction and everyone getting along across cultures.
How come you're not directing any of your Eden rewards towards Esperanto promotion? I think that would be a good initiative.
Should pivot.
Yeah, I mean, that could be another little like quill for our cap.
It's the language of decentralization.
There you go.
It's got a piece of every like language in it. So yeah.
I doubt there's any Swahili in it, but okay.
Yeah. All right.
I guess
what else you guys want to tackle?
One thing I was thinking about earlier, which kind of plays off what you guys were just talking about, is we've got 2 remaining payouts for chief delegate budgets, and I'm curious to know what people are doing with the remainder of their funds. We have like what was that?
You want to throw a pizza party?
No. I've been thinking about what I wanted to do.
Right?
What?
We only have one payout remaining?
Should be on March 8th and April 8th. And then the election is the day after the last distribution. But my thought, like, as I was listening to updates, I was thinking about this. Like, John's off working on Fractally. I'm finishing up my thing, and I already took payment for that. Like, a number of us are now in positions where I don't know that we had clear paths forward for what the remainder was. And like, personally, I've been thinking a lot about Pomelo, and like, I'm putting money in to have these videos edited, and like, I'm open to other ideas, but like, what are people's plans at this point with the remainder if it's not going to whatever we originally ran on? That's kind of the question I'm thinking about. And we don't have to jump into it today. I don't want to like put anybody on the spot, but it could be a good topic for today or a future meeting in the next couple of weeks. Pomelo season 2 is coming up in like 3 or 4 weeks.
True.
So
Anyone have any initial?
any reactions, or should we shelve that for a little bit?
I think for mine, I'm going to direct any extra funds I have to the DAO, the no vote by or my vote EOS DAO, because it'll have a DAO structure and then some function in the use of funds. So I think that's probably what I'll do with most of mine.
Cool. Curious to know more about what it would use funds for. I get the DAO.
Yeah, operations time.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be a lot of
Time.
effort to keep. I think so. Yeah. Like, well, my
Yeah.
initial thought with funds was going to be like an hourly wage to pay myself to do things, essentially. But now that I work for Helios, it doesn't really make sense. So I think if we put it there, then those who spend the time coordinating and ideally presenting the data that's presentable from the VPs about, because one of the questions is, do you have bare metal? What does it look like? Sharing costs, I think, to help democratize or at least make it easier for people to learn about that. So that's effort and time, hosting services. So essentially that.
Is the DAO going to have its own token?
No token, but it'll be an Eden membership. So 64 invite only members, an annual Eden manual election. So much more manual, but there'll be a treasury that'll be on an MSIG from the committee who is elected. So basically our position would be on the MSIG, manually done, bit of trust, and they would control whatever budget this thing would have, which would be minimal, but yeah.
So technically it's not a DAO, but a smart organization.
Yeah, sure. Based on the newly defined definition, whatever, it's like an organization working together.
Cool. Should be interesting.
John, let me tell you something. We are going to do our own thing, okay? We don't care if something is a true DAO or if it's, as long as it helps us, organize, we are fine with it, until we are able to come up with something better, at least for now.
I think the word DAO gets abused a lot. It's such a buzzword, like
who's
NFTs,
dragging
crap like
something
that.
repeatedly over?
Oh, you can hear
something.
that.
I
My
think it's
bad.
you.
So
That's right. It was like a bouncy ball that you were like bouncing
Like
on the
this-
desktop.
it's like black puck thing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, the DAO debate. That's a whole other. I mean, it's not wrong. I think Dan's, correct in his insistence on the correct, definitions around a DAO. But I think also it's kind of like one of those arguments that's just like it's like important, but not really. Like there's like bigger fish to fry in a lot of ways. Like it's just like
Oh, I have a question.
getting good at working together versus getting good at describing how we work together.
So,
it's like
Yeah.
I have a question for Aaron, actually,
Mhm.
so that I don't forget. So right now, what are some of the most important things that the network needs so that we can build a more efficient, I would say, dApps, or I would say DAOs? What are some of these things that?
If we want broader experimentation, like if we want more people experimenting how to build apps in DAOs, it's really SDKs, which is what's coming out in the Wallet Plus paper. There are very few teams that are capable of really building great user experiences right now. And we need to open that up and make it easier. And then once it is easier, we need to just document the hell out of it and educate people on how to use it. Other ecosystems do this pretty well. And right now, to build any sort of good application in this space, you've got to put in the time and become an expert. There are arguably no beginner developers in this space. Like it's just, you can't do anything until you're no longer a beginner. So in my opinion, it is the SDKs and the core technologies that developers need to build these applications.
Do you
Plus,
agree, John?
creating DAOs fractally, it's the whole thing. But to me, DAOs today are pretty shitty. Like they don't achieve as much as they kind of promise and what the hype, does. Yeah, Fractally is out there to change that and how we work together.
And I think
Is that your neutral view, or you are being a little partial there, huh? John?
Well, obviously there has to be some kind of bias. I'm only human and I'm working on this damn thing, all day, every day. But yeah, DAOs today, yeah, I would still argue that they're not that great. And most DAOs, again, they just use this as buzzword for, creators of a DApp or a blockchain to, as an exit method that, whenever they want to pull out, okay, now we're going to make it a DAO and now it's up to the community to handle it. And they just walk away, and abandon the project. Like majority of DAOs are used, for that.
And I guess I took the
corporate DAO washing.
I took the question in that you're right. Fractally, when it exists, will be an easy turnkey solution to create DAOs, but to create the software to create the DAOs requires the knowledge I was talking about. And the Fractally team, with the massive amount of experience you guys have, you're able to navigate the complexities of EOS.io and actually effectively build. Like, who on your team has the least experience, and how many years of experience is that? Like 4, 5? Everybody.
I guess, yeah, in terms of contract development and stuff, I think I would be least experienced. I don't know. No, there might be another dev or whatever, but yeah, I can definitely admit, fuck building Fractally without the guys that we do have.
It'd be real hard.
Todd and stuff like that. Is immensely easier when you're talking to developers that made the blockchain.
So the question was, let's say if a company like Haifa DAO was to come to the EOS network, what do we need, right? Like, is it ready for them to be able to build easily? I know that Fractally is going to do its thing, right? Because it's the governance and the game theory that will help you guys, get the get the business, right? So it shouldn't be about, okay, Fractally is just going to take over because we have the best developers, right? It should be, EOS is easy for everyone to build on, but Fractally is just as an application so useful that everyone will use, let's say, Fractally over the other companies that are trying to build DAOs on an EOS, because we want to make the network neutral, right? So
it's sort of chicken and egg as well. Like, how do you attract developers without apps on the blockchain, but then how do you build apps on the blockchain without a good developer experience as well? So it's difficult. You kind of need both at the same time, and there's only so many things that we can focus on and solve at once. But looks like the ENF is doing a good job, and Aaron's work towards developer experience, which would go a long way.
Hopefully we go that route. So
like, in terms of comparison, like Ethereum, you can be an idiot and you can still deploy contracts and stuff on Ethereum. There's 1,000 YouTube videos on it. You got pretty little documentation. It's pretty damn easy to do it. So
Docker for contracts over there, just grab somebody else's and be like, oh,
and again, and there's a library for everything that you need anyway. So if there's a smart contract that you want to build, chances are it's already been written and it's had bugs in it, and then someone's fixed the bugs, and that they're very well polished, and they've got standard contracts and stuff like that. which we don't really have contract standards so much, because again, the idea of EOS is that, ideally you just deploy the one version of it, and then, everyone can use, the same thing. Whereas Ethereum contracts are a lot more disposable. So there's pros and cons to both ways, and both ways of approaching it. But again, DPoS and EOS leans much more on human sort of governance than Ethereum has, because it's proof of work and a lot of it's, very automated and coder's law. So yeah, DPoS is shitty without good governance.
One of the big arguments for C++, I know there's other ways to compile now, was that it is difficult to write bad, buggy code or insert things into the code that are unintended. Whereas with higher level programming languages or more abstract languages, it's easier to like unintentionally package something, an exploit, into your code without even realizing it, because you didn't have to like do the hard work.
Yeah. Yeah, again, trade-offs there. Like Ethereum's definitely had to pay for that, but yeah, in terms of developer experience, it's typically easier for people to pick up Solidity than it is to C++.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely trade-offs there. But there's
But
also sorry, go on.
Aren't there other languages now that can be compiled into WebAssembly?
Yeah, so WebAssembly is the sort of target for smart contracts. Rust, it seems like a very well supported language for people to use. I like another one called Assembly Script. I don't think it's very mature though, but the cool thing about Assembly Script is that it's like designed to look a lot like TypeScript. And TypeScript is massive in the JavaScript community, and it's the JavaScript developers that make the front ends and stuff, which is more time consuming than running the smart contracts. Like a lot of cases, smart contracts is easier to do than the front end. Like it takes me way longer to make a pretty front end and have an interface and fetch the token balances and worry about it, all those things, where the smart contract is pretty straightforward in a lot of cases. I'd much rather it would be way easier building the smart contract for Violet Garden than building the UI for Violet Garden. So if you can tap into those JavaScript developers with something like Assembly Script, where it's very low cost of entry, I think that'd be pretty fantastic. Because C++ is what, like 9? How old is C++, Aaron? Do you know? Like when it first came out? Like,
Older than me. I don't know.
I was gonna say. I was like probably like when I was born or something.
Yeah,
it's bloody.
I don't know the age.
Yeah, it's bloody old. And
I know.
I'd really like to see Assembly Script too. I know Johan just the other day in the EOS.io developers channel shared some sort of blog update about
83.
some WASM engine related to it and recent improvements in performance that it's had. So it's definitely an area that, like, if EOS.io could contribute to it and help it mature, like that's a great target if it existed. Imagine just having one repository that was your front end and your smart contract, and you just deployed it. Like that's such a clean developer experience.
Yeah, it first appeared 37 years ago, 1985, C++ first.
All right, I'm a little older.
Wait, what? No, I got 1983 here. 1983 at Bell Labs.
Are you looking at
Strauss-Throop? C++, not C.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry that says first appeared 1985. So yeah, maybe.
No, McGill of School of Computer Science begs to differ. Well, anyway.
Oh, actually, sorry. Well, yeah, it says history. 1979. He came up with a concept of C with classes, which is essentially the selling point of C. So. Yeah, that's when he had the idea, at least, anyway.
Interesting. Yeah, here it says appeared in 85, but here it was developed. I think it was developed, or like, I don't know, 83, 85. Anyway.
So yeah, it was designed to bring more features to the C language, and C came out 50 years ago, 1972. So yeah, hectic.
This call's been a lot about languages. both programming and spoken. We need to
This
make
is-
sure all of them are supported in both
This is-
instances.
This is scary. Stroustrup addressed the origin of the name in the preface of a later editions of his book, adding that C++ might be inferred from the appendix of George Orwell's 1984. Of the three segments of the fictional language Newspeak, the C vocabulary is the one dedicated to technical terms and jargon. Double plus is the superlative modifier for Newspeak adjectives. Thus, C++ might hold the meaning most extremely technical or jargonous in Newspeak.
So next year, are we doing like API papers?
Oh my God. Have we been incepted? Ah! API plus plus.
Yep.
It would keep adding pluses.
API plus cubed.
And then we have to get into the ungoods, double plus
John,
ungood.
are you guys gonna bid on any of the work that needs to get done on Mandel? Because there's a lot of work that needs to get done, and you know, we want to make sure that at least, you know, Fractally is looking at some of these great jobs that are out there to help build the network. You know, money is money, and also integrity is always integrity. Whichever way that comes, we will take it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what we're working on at the moment. I've been working on sort of new code rather than upgrading existing stuff. It's very different, you know, because I'm doing like smart contracts and front end. Very, very different to, you know, actually building the chain and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't even know. Kind of trying to stay in my own lane at the moment. Just having a bit of an information overload lately. I even deleted Telegram from my phone yesterday too. So yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that many of the Fractally devs seem to be either not available on Telegram or not looking at their Telegram anymore. Is that
I wondered why that
team-wide?
was. No, I wondered why that was, but now I'm starting to learn why. It's just, I don't know. It's just a lot of information, a lot of questions, and you know, ultimately, I just want to code. Like I want to build stuff, and it's very, I don't know. I'm struggling to have the right balance. Like yesterday, yeah, I definitely. Like yesterday, I just turned off my phone and went for a walk. I didn't even do much work yesterday.
But it makes sense though. It makes sense though, because you guys have a company, you have a business to work on, to build. You know what I'm saying? So it makes sense to work on that. That business.
I think it's different as well, because like there's the software part, and I'll happily talk about the software, but then it's so easy in Telegram for the software to immediately, you know, pivot to the political conversation of it, and then the conversation can go sour very quickly, and you've got about 2 minutes before someone brings up $4 billion of block one. And then I was like, oh fuck this. And so like, you know, and then you're like, well, hang on, I should be coding, like, you know, what am I doing here? Now I'm getting sucked into, you know, into this, and you know, what value do I really bring in Telegram compared to, you know, my code that I can write, you know, the apps that we can build and stuff as well. So yeah, I'm trying to have a better balance between it all.
Hard. It's hard. You need somebody to act as a shield. I kind of do that for my team. I don't want to. I want to hire somebody to do it for me.
You're a very rare engineer character who's actually doing the communication work. I feel like there's that tendency among engineers to just retreat into the code and be like, I'll just, you know, it's like kind of an artist mode too. Like, I'm just gonna like work on my sculpture, and then people will see it and they'll understand. But in blockchain, that is problematic, just because these are communities, not like audiences. And so so I fear when teams that are needed like retreat like into far off places and stop or like diminish communications. I know communication does have a negative impact on output, but output isn't like the only, like it's not like at the apex of all,
Yeah,
consideration.
I think
So
DPOS in general kind of forced that out of both me and Scott being the partner I founded Grey Mass with, because we were both like, we had to be out there to be elected. We had to interact with the community to maintain our status and our funding. So it really forced us not to retreat, despite how much we wanted to retreat. And that's in my ideal world, where block producers are these crazy value creators or something else in a DPOS-like system where you have to be out there presenting your ideas. Even if it's not block producers, is where I was going with that. Is it forces you to not stay in your cave and build that thing, because to continue to like receive your funding, you need to continually be out there and doing it. And then like interacting with like Steam It Inc. Like they had this massive pre-mine and they didn't need anything. They would just like retreat into their hole and do things. And then they'd emerge from their hole with their sculpture, as you said, and the community look at it and be like, what the hell is that? And it's like they didn't have that feedback cycle because of that retreating that happened. And so for all the ugly things about DPOS, like that might be one of the good ones, is that you have people that are forced to come out and continually communicate, because otherwise, like you can't just go back to your cave and keep working. Like you won't be a block producer anymore or a value creator anymore. So
I also
sure
feel
is
like,
interesting.
yeah, I mean, something that has been coming up in my mind a lot lately too is just the whole agile versus waterfall development methodology, which seems so relevant, especially in a community of, comprised of a large number of coders. And the idea that you could just hide away and then come out with some big, it's all there kind of like reveal without having that back and forth that agile kind of indicates might be a lot smarter, where you're like, how about this? Is this good? What about this? Like getting that back and forth with your client or with your community or whatnot. And it's surprising to see, like, I know the desire for sure, like as somebody with artistic leanings, I can totally, trust me, I want to disappear. I want to disappear a lot of the time. But yeah, just that back and forth, like you say, is so crucial to the development cycle being successful, in like, at least in my understanding of like the modern way of looking at development, like especially if you're trying to fit it to a client's needs. Or
yeah, I think I shared this in EOS Gov like a week or two ago, but there is me being a video game nerd, Blizzard and Overwatch, one of their huge games right now, they started with Titan and they went into this hole in this Project Titan, which was what they had. They developed just completely in this bubble, did not work out, project failure. Funny enough, I was actually interviewing to be on the Titan team back in, I don't even remember what year it was, but I got a call as I was getting on the plane to leave California after my interview, which lasted like 2 days. And as I get this call on the plane, they're like, sorry, we can't hire you. And I was like, oh, that sucks. And then the plane took off and I got home. And then the news broke that the project was canceled. And I was like, oh, well, that's a little bit different. But there's this, the reason I'm going down this rabbit hole is there's this video that goes through the history of this project, the failure that they went through, and then the rebirth into something that was successful, being Overwatch. And if you just listen to these developer stories, there's probably like a 5 or 10 minute portion of this video where if you listen to what they're saying and apply it to EOS and EOS.io, like the through line is incredibly similar. And like we have this opportunity and we could arguably learn from the failures that they had on how we could recover. But it really touches on everything we've been talking about for the last like 10 or 15 minutes. When I mentioned it in EOS Gov, it was really just a quick note or whatever, but like that thought has really stuck with me. I've mentioned it to a few people. I'm mentioning it to you guys now. I should really just like share the YouTube clip like at that second and then be like, listen to this and think EOS, you know, because
do share it. We'll include it in the show notes too.
Yeah.
Isn't that where the phrase "you're only as good as your last game" came from?
Yep. And if you've heard that being piped around, that's true. And I guess that is a great way to kind of segue back to what we were talking about, because if you do have the tendencies to go off into your bubble and then come back out with something that you're like, oh, like I did this thing over these past years and here it is. This is this great thing that I didn't consult anybody on. Like, if that fails, that's going to be your reputation. You are only as good as that last project you just did, because there was no communication before or after that. So EOS is kind of in that state, and arguably Dan is kind of in that state where he is only as good as his last game at this point, which at this point is a failure. I mean, we're working on recovering that. Like the failure was probably, I don't know, November with all that drama, December. And we're trending upwards again, but that it's really something to be aware of. Is that if you are going to retreat, like your perception from people is going to be that you really are only as good as your last project. And until you go out and then come back with something new, like that's going to be the reputation that sticks with you. So I'll definitely share that video. Maybe I'll just post it in chat with a small message or something and expand upon that. Because like it's been weeks now since I've been like drawing this analogy, and yeah.
I love finding stories that can help kind of instill a bit of wisdom in the.
And it probably resonates with me a lot harder because A, I'm a video game nerd, and B, I almost had a job on this company that was kind of like my dream job 10 years ago or whenever this was. So it'll probably resonate a lot harder with me than most, but maybe that it'll resonate a little bit with everybody else.
Yeah. All right. I think are we done yet, or?
You wish we were done. We have to go another 5 hours to break the record, don't we? Or another we're still scheduled for at least 4.5 more hours, I think, to make it as far as we did last night.
If you based it per participant of the call, we still win, don't we?
Oh, right. The number of hours, like relative. Maybe. Yeah. Find us a folk tale.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have one thing as eating on EOS chief delegates, our thought process. I mean, so where do we go from here in terms of Eden as it stands, and in terms of trying to bring some value to the EOS community? I mean, what is the thought process now?
I think ultimately we're still waiting on if Fractally is going to be the replacement for this, or if we are going to say, no, we're going to continue improving the Eden process. Like it's, there's too much.
Doing?
I'm painting. I think it's hilarious that you just asked, "Are we done yet?" And then you asked this question.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But are we done yet? Because there's this elephant right here. Hold on a second.
Do we got to deal with this elephant?
Yeah, but I think maybe next time, when everyone is fresh and ready, and Chris is not too busy, we can all just, think about things and talk about it,
I can talk. I just keep my camera off because I figure you don't want to watch me paint.
It's kind of
anyway,
cool
yeah.
though.
You could be like our Bob Ross, like the happy painter. Come on.
Here's a cloud.
Yeah. Oh, this isn't
He
as
just
pretty.
needs a happy painter.
Trim. Yeah, looking good. Eh?
Looking
Because
good.
I feel like we have to plan accordingly and try to make sure that we keep the eating community engaged, and we have to come up with some sort of I would say a path forward, at some point, not now, but at some point. So as the chief delegate, this is our task,
Well, what do you want to do? Do we want to try change the term lengths so we get a bit more freshness out of it?
Yeah, I want to change a
But-
couple of things, actually, John.
Yeah.
I want to change the meetings to let's say weekly, like the weekly meetings, like the delegates are doing right now. And based on what someone did, you just reward them based on what they did, right? And then we can change the chief delegate time of office to maybe a month.
Well, what we could do is take the remainder of funds that we do have and do the weekly meetings where we do the ranking and then just distribute EOS accordingly and
Yeah.
use that as an experiment for the viability of becoming a fractal.
So that as an iteration, right? Just to see how the process will work. And then we continue eating like the way it is. But maybe we have to get rid of the 10 EOS because people are always having problems paying that 10 EOS. Or we have to bring it down a little bit. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I don't know, it depends on how we do elections. The 10 EOS, protects us in some cases.
Mhm.
Fractally doesn't need it because again, you've got to be on the calls and to actually get any political influence, you actually have to provide, value for a few weeks before, even have a chance of, getting a seat at the table where, Eden, you can just waltz on in, show up to an election. And if you say the right things and, there you go, you can be a chief delegate.
No, but we are going to switch it, right? You have to bring something to the table before we give you.
Well, there's the distribution of, it depends how much you switch. Do we want to, create a governance powers with the weekly meetings as well?
No, so I want us to basically, for us to basically start doing this with Eden so that it becomes easier for us to see how this thing is going to work in the future, right? Because Dan doesn't want us to talk about EOS on Genesis fractally, and he doesn't want none of that, right? So if that's going to be the situation, we have Eden, we have a code, which, we paid for, right? So we can just iterate on that code and use the concept of fractally to see how it will work on EOS, right? And we have a treasury already, right? So based on how people reach consensus, we can allocate some funds and stuff like that. I mean, we have to come up with a better system though. We have to think through it. And
It's going to be a long conversation, I think, especially if we're increasing the frequency of elections, because elections have to be run by people. So there's gonna, it's not, the elections aren't kind of automated. The first one wasn't.
we can contract fractally. We can contract fractally the team.
Eventually,
Right.
I don't think we can say we can until we know we can.
Okay, that's also true.
Yeah, well, again, if there's weekly meetings and we're experimenting with it, then maybe there's a deal that we could do with, fractally, because it'd be in both of our, interests, essentially. Or again, there's, further
Yeah,
information on how
John,
to take
something,
elections.
I'm gonna be very upfront with you, okay? The whole reason why we have fractally is because you guys told us eating 2.0. All right. So I don't want to hear anything. It's Eden 2.0. Guys, let's continue what we started. That's all that we are saying. I just have to be very upfront about that.
Well, that's what I'm keen on, but you know,
Yeah,
some people aren't so keen on it, and they want to keep, you know, Eden an independent, you know, thing, and not, you know, upgrade to Eden 2.0.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Some people prefer Eden as is, and they don't want to upgrade to Eden 2.0.
Who's that?
Bring him
Those are
on.
who these
Random.
people are.
Oh man, Chris is in the waiting room again. He just left and keeps coming back.
So we have
Still here.
an election on the on
Yeah,
April
we have an
9th.
election coming up.
And I think one of the main things that people are going to be looking for is whether you're going to be running to upgrade or to kind of keep Eden 1.0. And I know there's differing opinions. Me personally, I'm really excited about Fractally, and I will be running on upgrading and
Jesse,
doing whatever we could to be gradual in that method in any way we can. And so I
Yes.
think that's kind of the main sticking point. Yeah.
Dan had the bylaws. Okay, he can change the bylaws whichever way he wanted. He could have just been like, guys, now we are going to do bi-weekly or weekly meetings. And he could have given us a reason why it's important. That's what I'm trying to say. So to change the weekly meetings to bi-weekly or weekly, it's not a big deal. We can propose that. And we can propose that, okay, chief delegates are going to be there for a month. We can propose that. And then the next couple of guys will decide if they want to approve it or not.
Wait, sorry, are you talking about Fractally or Eden?
No, I'm talking about Eden, right? So let's think of it like this.
You want to pay out for weekly meetings on Eden.
Yes, or Eden 1.0
Right.
becoming Eden 2.0. So basically, we are going to take some of the bylaws of Fractally and just let's call it, quote unquote, Eden 2.0. We are iterating to see if the system is going to work.
Somebody would
But
have to
that's
propose what
very
that
labor
means. Yeah, it is labor intensive.
I don't
Be easier
think the
just to support.
Or it's either that or we continue to say that we're going to go to Fractally, and then we have Dan saying, hey guys, I don't want you guys coming here to talk about EOS stuff. Go and talk about Fractally on EOS. And then now we have Eden, people from Eden, they don't know what to do, and we might destroy the community.
That's a very real risk at this point, because this is Eden on EOS, with our focus being on EOS. And if it is anticipated that we're going to move to Fractally and we can't talk about EOS on Fractally, then
which is a Dan created schism.
Yeah.
Hang on, why can't we talk about EOS and Fractally?
Yeah. Why?
Did you see what Dan put?
I don't know.
Oh,
When did Dan say
he
this?
just
You deleted Telegram. You should go catch up.
Yeah. You should really.
I think
join the
I
communication
saw. It's you know, there's a Fractally chat about Fractally, you know, the white paper, all that, which is, you know, can be used for anything. It can be used for vegans and cleaning up the ocean kind of thing. And then there's, you know, an instance of Fractally, you know, on EOS. It's not like he's not, you know.
No, he
welcome.
said if you want to talk about Fractally, go to Eden on EOS channel and go and talk about Fractally.
No, EOS. We talked about
No,
EOS.
he's
Yeah.
EOS, not Fractally.
He's
Oh,
not
I'm sorry.
banning-
Wasn't very
banning
welcome.
speech about
No, no, no.
Fractally on the
If you
Fractally
want to talk
chat.
about Fractally on EOS, go to Eden on EOS. That's what he said. Am I correct?
Anyway, it's like Dan doesn't want to talk about EOS, and is what the message we're getting from all this communication. Or he doesn't want people talking about EOS in the Fractally groups. Whatever, fine. So, but I don't know. My feeling is
as soon as you say
my feeling
EOS,
is just yes.
as soon as you say EOS in the chat, again, it's a 2-minute timer until someone brings up block 1, and then it's just it goes to shit again. So
No,
yeah, keep Fractally for Fractally, and then keep the
we understand that though. We understand that. We are trying to come up with a solution that, okay, fine. We still have Eden. Okay. So how can we iterate to get to where we can have Fractally, if you guys even decide to build Fractally independently and do your own thing? We can still at some point come back to you guys It's not like we cannot, right? But we cannot let Eden be destroyed because we, the chief delegates, we did not do anything. So my thing is, we have Eden 1.0. Okay, we can build or iterate to Eden 2.0. And then we continue the iteration until we get to Fractally at some point. I mean, what is wrong with that? We are using the same concept to reach consensus.
I feel like Eden is a great concept in and of itself. However, given the context of everything, I think we should use Eden to support the creation and success of Fractally, because
Yeah, but how?
How?
well, for one, we could fund the ongoing Fractally experiments with our Eden budget if we wanted to. That's one proposal.
But then it's going to be
Eden
EOS.
could kind
It's
of
going to be Fractally
help
on
give
EOS.
birth to Fractally. What?
Then it's going to be EOS, right? You are using EOS, funds from EOS to fund the Genesis Fractally. And then you cannot talk about EOS when you are in Genesis Fractally.
We can talk about whatever we want
You
to.
can't take this so seriously. When
You just use your
Dan
code
says
name.
that, it's
I don't know what
he's gonna change his
Don't get-
mind in a little bit. Like,
Don't get too carried away. It's kind of more of a humorous note than a
I
dogma we must all live by now.
don't think it would be wise to put all of Eden's eggs in one basket, because the point of Eden on EOS is EOS, not, this isn't Eden on Fractally.
Right.
And I bring the same point up when we're talking about using Eden to fund Eden. Like, to some degree, we should do that. But if somebody was like, we should spend our entire budget to build the Eden systems, I'd probably be against that too. Like, the point of Eden was to help distribute funds to improve EOS.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
it's
why can we not do that? We can do that.
we're
by
doing that right
distributing
now.
the Treasury.
You're doing that through EOS support. Do you want to
Okay.
take all the EOS support money and give it to Fractally?
No. I would
That's
not
what
do
we're
that.
talking about right now.
No, but I'm saying that why can't we use the Eden Treasury, right, to run more elections and distribute the funds to people who are providing value, like who are
because it's a labor problem.
We
That's why we
can.
can't.
People run on that. It's just that for
Oh.
the next election, some candidates are basically, I'm running on that I'm going to give all my money to the Fractally experiments. Vote for me.
Oh, okay. I get, yeah.
You could do that, right?
You could, yeah.
Yeah.
But we can't just decide to like carte blanche, take the whole treasury and do something with it.
But this is a question I've been thinking of with the Eden Treasury. Like, I feel like there's a lot of murkiness around like how it can be deployed and who can deploy it and stuff like that.
No one can. I mean, we each are, through the smart contract, allocated a certain portion of the treasury. And like, if you want 5% every month of the Eden treasury to go to Fractally development, then you need to get how many ever chief delegates, all of them to do that. And then all of the other levels of delegates. I don't remember how the numbers work.
Are the keys nulled on the smart contract? Can it be changed?
Nope, Dan has them.
Okay, so Dan has the keys to the Eden smart contract, and so technically he can change it, but it may be
That would,
Oh
yeah, that would be quite the legal
Yeah.
quagmire to enter into if his team touched those funds.
But
with
didn't
community
Dan give us
support-
the offer to eject if we want to?
Couldn't what? Sorry, I didn't.
I thought Dan gave us the offer to eject, Fractally from governance of the contract and hand it over to us. So it's more of a DAO, we're more independent.
I
But
don't
what
remember
is
hearing
this?
that.
What is this legal situation that you're talking about?
There was essentially a grant given, or I think legally the grant was given to this, whatever you want to call us, a DAO,
MSIG.
the MSIG, for the Eden Treasury, which technically the owner permissions belong to the block producers, but the active permissions belong to the Eden team. If the Eden team were just to swipe all of the funds and devote them to something else, they have to account for those funds somehow, or that action somehow legally. And with everything
I'm
that
saying with
Dan's been
community
through,
support, it's possible.
what?
If there was community support, I'm not saying that they like
There's no
go to a back door and
mechanism.
swap the keys.
There's no mechanism for that to happen. The only mechanism to
perhaps
take the
chief delegates
treasury.
are.
What?
Perhaps the chief delegates are the mechanism.
Well, that doesn't exist right now. Like that mechanism,
Right. You're saying automatically doesn't exist.
it just doesn't exist right now. Like we don't have that power. That power would have to be created by someone. It could exist, absolutely. And then we're on the line for changing and sending those funds somewhere. Like this goes back to the very early days of like, we don't have mechanisms to make decisions together to jointly allocate funds. All of the funds that we all get are independent to us.
Well, it seems like anytime we ever try to do anything, we always get tripped up over, not being independent enough to do it, or again, not having bylaws in place to do it. So it's either we just get our shit together and do something, or we just try, I don't know, I always,
Let's do something.
or sometimes think that it's just best, dissolving Eden and then waiting for Fractally to come out, because like that's where the bylaws and everything are defined, and go from there.
But what do you do with the funds, John?
They would just sit there.
They would
The
yeah, I don't
BPs
know,
could
just
take it back.
go.
No. We are not going to allow that. All right.
You technically don't have a choice. The BPs technically own this account. The
Right,
BPs
so
could pull the
we
plug
can
on
make a
Eden
decision.
legally.
We just have to
at
vote
any
better.
point.
We just got to vote for better BPs. Then we can get what we want.
Oh,
Or maybe the
no,
BPs
that's out of
have-
scope. That is far out of scope of Eden.
So, but why is it that we cannot continue Eden with a
We
little
can.
bit of Fractally concepts?
We
propose
can, but when we try to do that, we're now stuck, because again, we ourselves are not independent, and we don't have a proper system in place to actually make decisions and stuff as well. So like first things first, before we do anything, I would say we have to successfully eject and write up our own bylaws to then go ahead and then make
I'm
decisions. And
So you guys are telling me that the chief delegates cannot write bylaws that can be implemented. That this is
Bylaws
how
are
it-
not smart contract rules. We're talking about the smart contract itself. Bylaws are completely independent of a smart contract.
Yeah. Wait, were you
We could
directing
make
that at me, or
No, Randall.
no?
Yeah, I understand that, but my goal is this: we still have a team. We can hire the team. The team can make changes to smart contract, to everything, right? So if we want to build, if we want to continue to build Eden and iterate, okay, we have to have a plan, or else we just wasted 100,000 years. I just keep coming back to that.
What 100,000 EOS are you talking about?
That 100,000 EOS, the 100,000 EOS that we use to build Eden, the software, the Eden OS, right? So we have a software, we can make changes, and we can move forward and continue to build on this.
We need a plan, and then we need to figure out who's going to do that.
What do you think,
And
I
Chris?
like it. Let's do that.
Should we do it? Should we save Eden, or should we?
No. We are going to Eden 2.0.
No,
Because the reason why
I
I'm
mean,
using that word, the reason why I'm using Eden 2.0 is because now there's a lot of confusion, right? It's like
Eden 2.0 might be your destination, but you're suggesting Eden 1.1, Eden 1.2, Eden 1.3, and I'm saying we don't even have the foundation to even decide what the hell 1.1 looks like until we eject from Fractally, and until we write our own bylaws to then make these decisions over what the hell 1.1 is even meant to look like.
Anyone,
think we should
anyone
ask the-
understands what John is saying?
If we don't do anything, what happens on April 9th?
Well, Fractally will just run the election, and then whichever other poor bastards are going to be in our position try to steer the ship.
People will run and they'll get their access to the 5% of the treasury per month. Like that'll happen.
Yeah,
Maybe they can.
but we're just
set the
passing
term
on the
differently.
curse, aren't we?
We are potentially, but that's so. But wasn't one of the questions like we can't do anything because the traditional law world stops us? Like they can't move the money from that treasury because it's illegal. I think is that because I don't understand why.
It's
Like we write bylaws, the bylaws then become the rules, and then that
Rules?
isn't that the legal side? And yeah, there's
Yeah.
a smart contract side, but then there's the legal side. So we're just trying to like solve for both.
where are the funds going exactly?
Depend. I mean, the chief
Depends.
delegates at the time would probably choose. The bylaws would dictate. The bylaws could say that the chief delegates have the authority to update the code. I mean, Dan had the idea of staggered elections to implement bylaw changes. Even that could be changed if people run on it. And as far as legally, I don't know who's going to take us to court. They can watch the videos. I don't, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I think we have the authority to come up with bylaws, and that bylaw can be approved, and we can update the code. To me, we have to do something like that, or else.
Yeah,
we
but we have to do all those things before we even consider, hey, let's change to 1.1, even 1.1, because at the moment we're unable to change, or we're unable to leave 1.0.
So
This is
the
gonna
way I see it, that this legal thing is if Eve sees a plan that he likes with how to move the Eden Treasury, there won't be a legal problem. But like that's a hard plan to come up with, I guess.
Why is Eve got to do with this?
Yeah, this has
Because
something to
the
do with-
ENF funded the Treasury.
No, the block.
Yeah, but he funded the treasury, and it's up to Eden to decide what it does with the treasury. Can't just go back and say, hey, that treasury that you invested in, can you come back and tell us what to do with it?
well, was there a contract?
Aaron is suggesting that there may be a legal problem. And
Eve can coordinate with the block producers. The block
Yeah.
producers technically own the Eden account.
Correct.
Correct. And if they want to do something with the Eden account, they're welcome to go ahead and start messing with it. But until then, we have, certain permissions over it. And then we have the offer, I believe, from
We
Fractally
have
that we can
zero
eject.
permissions.
No,
We have board permissions on the contract that are given no permissions to do anything.
Well, unless there's link off on it, I think we actually do have permissions. But again, Dan offered that we can have active permission. I said that ages ago.
It's true.
So and that's what I mean by eject, as in we kick, Fractally out of, governance powers over the contract, and then it's up to us to decide its destiny.
Did you say Fractally and mean Eden, or you said
Yeah.
Fractally?
Yeah,
Kicking
Fractally.
Fractally out of.
Hostile takeover. John's plotting a coup.
It's not a hostile. It's an offer that Dan gave us. I told you guys.
yeah, Dan said it
confused.
in the last call. He said it to us in the last call.
Yeah.
And but it's very unclear the process to get to that place.
It's
pretty-
murky. There's a lot of exploration that needs to go
Wait.
on this process.
Can you
Like,
say this like in really straightforward terms, like using this word eject and all this shit? Can you just say, we want the M6,
We want the
0.2
active-
here or there?
Going to the
or-
moon. Everything's
We
about
want-
moon rocketry.
Shush.
We want the active key from the Fractally team to the Eden Treasury.
To the Eden.
Wait.
No, we
I
don't.
will-
Fractally team doesn't have the
Oh, is
key.
that wrong? Oh, sorry, is that wrong?
It's controlled by the block producers.
We want the active permission changed to the sitting chief delegates.
I will straight up tell you that I will not sign an MSIG that moves that many tokens without consulting with like a
So
lawyer.
there's no movement of tokens. We're just updating the active permission on the Genesis.Eden EOS account.
I'm saying after the fact. Like, why
Yeah.
are we changing it? Is it to move a
Move
balance?
tokens.
Well,
No,
no,
we're
So-
changing it.
Some
We're,
tokens,
there you
we're
go.
changing it first as our Declaration of Independence first, like
Yes.
full,
yes,
like
I agree.
full
I agree with
stop.
that.
From there, we then have the power to make changes that we want, you know, according to our bylaws that we wrote.
Yes. Yes. That makes sense.
I agree to this if we write a Declaration of Independence. NFT.
But this is probably for the next set of chief delegates.
Yeah,
Is-
that is another concern, is we have like a little over a month.
But we can
I don't-
propose, you know what we could do is propose this Declaration of Independence. And then the next set can decide whether they want to do it.
Yeah.
Well, hang on.
Be like a bylaw
We
set.
can't even give them the power to do it without first getting it from do. So yeah, we still need. Well, yeah, we can't even decide that without first going ahead ourselves, making the deck. Like, yeah, why are we waiting? Like, as if we haven't waited long
You
enough.
just have to approach the fractally team and eject. That's all.
Yeah,
we're doing.
we
Yeah.
eject.
the
And by doing so, that's a Declaration of Independence, and then we have bylaws from day one. This is it, and then chief delegates after that can, you know, decide what they want to do with it. But fuck, let's do something.
I think
They have to
once we
ratify
do
the
that-
bylaws though.
Well,
But you got to
say-
follow.
Yeah, well, we'll
right?
put in the initial bylaws, and then those bylaws will determine how to change the bylaws. And I imagine we'll do it based on the term thing where the first set proposes it, and then the next set does it. But for us, for the one time thing, we should just straight up set them right now.
This is history that we are
Oh,
making right here.
Changing the rules.
Yep. And
But-
nowhere in this plan does it ever move the account out of the control of the BPs.
No, no,
we can't.
no, we're not gonna do that.
No,
We
we can't.
can't
It's
do-
impossible.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Yeah,
We don't need
So-
to.
we don't need to.
What we're effectively talking about is like if the ENF decided to just take all the funds out of one of their BP control accounts and do something with it. That is akin to the action we are discussing right now, because in both situations, the network owns these accounts. These are public accounts.
Yeah,
You guys are operating under the assumption that we as chief delegates own this contract and that Dan is giving us the authority to own this. But when it comes down to a legal point of view, it's very possible that neither Dan nor us own that treasury.
Well, yeah, if you say own, then yeah, the block producers own it, and then you could argue that the block producers own everything there is on EOS because
No. This is very specific that the owner permission of this contract is owned by the system. The owner permission on your account isn't owned by the system.
Yeah, but they can change the owner permission of your account.
That's different.
Can I ask a question?
It depends on how you argue it, but either way, yeah, the owner permission is the block producers, but the active permission can be ours.
My only
then
reason
with-
for
with
saying
the-
all of this is that I don't think the six of us on this call can make any decisions in this regard without it rippling outwards with other people.
Oh, yeah,
If
well,
we-
we're gonna do
If we
something
did it,
though.
would
Like,
the
what
BPs
else?
sue us? If we decided to, if we flip it over and we move the funds to another account, what will they do?
I have
Oh,
no
well,
idea, to be honest.
We shouldn't do that. I'm not
no,
suggesting
we
we
can
do.
have
No. But if we did though, I mean, what would they do in the end? I mean, they'd be mad at us, I suppose, but it's not like, I don't think
They could take it back,
Yeah, they could easily take it back if they really wanted.
or they
That'd
would get
be-
wind of it and then just like block us. Because they have, like, they don't even have to use superpowers
They'd
to
get
block
wind of
us.
it. You mean like these calls? How would they?
Yeah, they're watching our calls. All of them.
Wait,
Um,
so this
damn.
account-
We've
That's
been
It's a big
hacked.
move. That's all I'm saying. I'm not like arguing for
Yeah, yeah,
or against one side. I'm just saying there's a lot of shit that goes on in this discussion we're having right now. So
So,
That's-
so,
wait,
so
wait, hold on,
Aaron,
hold on.
I'm gonna bring this up, right? So the ENF is
Here
the
we go,
ENF
hour
is
three.
looking for us to do something, right? They want us to run Eden and to make it a success so that we can
Yeah.
be able to help EOS, right? So
does that
You're
mean
right.
taking the treasury?
no. I'm just
Oh, who's suggesting that we
for
take
its
the
own
treasury?
good.
That's not
Trust us.
No one's suggesting
We're
that we're
not
taking the
taking
treasury.
Are you
So
sure?
what we are doing is we just want to eject fractally so that we have options to have a team that we can hire. So we can eject them and hire them. But now
Yeah.
the chief delegates will be the ones who are in control now.
That term
Keep in
eject
mind,
is
whenever you
really
eject-
fucking with my head. I don't get the eject term. That means to
Because-
like take
Because
something
right now
out
they're in
of.
control. They're in control.
Yeah, take
Swap
Fractally
permission.
out of
Swap
Eden.
permission.
You eject with your
Fractally is
parachute.
not
That's
in
all the
Eden.
funds.
Fractally is
So-
in
Fractally
Eden.
is
They
here.
have the active
Fractally
permissions of the contract.
has the active
Yeah.
permission.
I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. Eject the. Okay.
Yeah.
So Aaron,
remove permissions. from-
Metaphorically, we have the top level as the BPs, and then we have the Fractally team as the active permission, and then there's us with this board
Okay,
permission,
okay.
and we would eject Fractally out of there
Fractally,
and
yes.
bump ourselves
And
up.
bump us up, yeah.
can
That's
I ask
we're
a question?
doing.
Yeah.
For this owner active key thing, if I have an account and I have the owner key, and I give my brother the active key, I am implying that my brother can do whatever he wants with the account. So if the BPs are okay with the Fractally team owning the active key, and the Fractally team chooses to give us the active permission, doesn't that imply like that the BPs are okay with it too?
It's really murky when it comes to legalities, but technically, if you had the owner key and you were just letting somebody else use it with the active key, it's still your account. You are the one that is in ultimate control.
Does Wombat
Yeah,
give you your
but-
owner
but-
key?
But
Yes.
When you do a Wombat account, you get your owner key right away.
Yeah, I think it's both active and owner they give you.
But
Oh,
active
you
is
have to
still going to
pay.
be MC'd. It's still going to require,
Probably.
say, five out of the 6 to actually, do something.
Which makes it even murkier.
Aaron,
I
Aaron, think
propose-
about this like this. If you have a bank account, right, and you give your you have your debit card, you give it to your son to hold on to it, and he goes and he wipes out your account. You cannot sue your son.
No, but if your son did something illegal with that money, you'd be on the hook for it because it's your account.
Would you be on the hook for it though?
Yeah.
Why?
your
Like
responsibility
but
for
if
that
you trust me with
funding.
your car and then I run someone over with it, are you on the hook for that?
Yes,
Potentially
You're not.
you are from an insurance perspective. Absolutely, you are.
Wait, but not from a legal perspective and getting
legal.
sued and going
yeah,
to jail or
you're
anything like that.
material.
Doing it.
I think it's
Anyways.
weird, but yeah.
I think
a
to
lawyer.
kind of like reel this back a little bit, if this is a serious direction, then we need a serious plan that outlines like how Eden moves forward. And I'm not volunteering for that. Like, Randall, you're pushing for it. We have to figure out who's running elections, what system changes are going to happen, what the money would be used for, like there's a lot of things that would go into pushing Eden into a new direction.
Are we willing to do that? That's the question. Are we willing to do
It's-
that? Is it worth it?
Do we have time to do that? Is it another one to tack onto that?
Oh, I think we owe it to the next chief delegates anyway. Otherwise, we're just giving them a turn and say, oh, you do it.
Well, here's
you figure it out
defense of
because we
that.
couldn't.
you guys have all been like just crapping on the process we have now, but let's say we did nothing. What will happen on the 9th is a new election of people running will come up, and those people will get funded, and those people will use those funds for good things like we have. That's not going to change on April 9th. It sucks that we're not getting upgrades, but if the Eden election on April 9th just runs as is, we're going to get new people that are getting funded with new ideas, and they're going to do things with that money. They're not going to dump it all into one experiment like we're
But
proposing
Aaron-
right now. There's going to be dozens of ideas that are funded.
Aaron, 6 months? That is too long.
I completely agree. And I am at fault for not, I kind of derailed when they were like, let's do it in January or
Yeah.
whatever. And I was like, hold the train. And because that's when we were all talking about what we wanted to
Yeah.
do with the chief delegates. And I was like, but we got this thing we're trying to do. We kind of failed at that.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, I shouldn't have opened my mouth, and we should have already had an election by now.
I'm guilty.
Like,
I'm guilty. as
yeah.
well.
Well,
We're
I think
learning.
it just caught us off guard how it was communicated. Again, communication. Like, had that been delivered in a different way, we could have all been just totally in agreement. But instead, it was like we were blindsided by this
Yeah.
information, and so we were all like, "Wait, what? Wait a second. How does that impact all this stuff?" And we did
How
that
does
live.
affect my keys?
Yeah.
And then we crashed into the Telegram group like, this doesn't make any sense at all. Wait, but we were planning to do this and that. Whereas, yeah, had it been rolled out more like, look, here's our thinking. Had we been approached and like discussed, with ahead of time, like we probably, I mean, I know I would have been like, sweet, like take it off my hands. We're ready to pass the torch, but
It's not too late, Brandon.
Maybe a takeaway here though is that we come up with lists of ideas on things we think need to be changed. And one of them, like you just said, could be the duration. It shouldn't be 6 months. Maybe it should be a month. Maybe it should be 3 months. I don't know what it is. Like
A month
on
is
my
fine.
list, I'm going to get rid of sortition. It's dumb.
Yeah.
what if it's weekly?
I mean, sortition actually, like that would be an interesting discussion to have on a shorter time frame. Because like 6 months of being a sortition winner is dumb. Maybe if it were weekly, sortition makes more sense, but
Well, what's wrong with sortition?
it's dumb that one person gets elected and has gets the equivalent of everyone else combined in additional funding.
Yeah, but you can just change, like that's a variable that you can change. You could just say the sortition winner only gets 5% extra rather than double or something like
All
that.
right, I'd be
You don't
okay
have to
with
kill
reducing the
sortition
amount.
entirely.
Maybe my issue is with sortition as is. Like you guys, like the amounts are what? Like the level that all of us are is like 1,000 EOS. And then on top of that, the sortition winner gets 4,000 more. That's a lot. That is too big of a discrepancy.
Right. So we can
let's reduce
change
that.
we can change these parameters once we eject, and then once we write our own bylaws.
Or we can just be like, hey, Fractally team, I need you to issue this smart contract update.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna.
Hold on.
Well,
Account recovery, man. Account recovery, guys.
Oh, like that. Yeah, that's coming. But
Okay.
we can't say, oh, can you change this? Or can you change that? Blah blah blah. Because then it's just
Okay, they can make
that
a
doesn't
list.
come for free. Like that's the development
will
expense
pay.
there.
We will pay them. They should just make a list how much it's going to cost them for them to update the contract.
I'll bet you it costs 100 times more to run a new election on the 9th than it would to change the variable that comes with sortition or to change the variable of the date. Like those are super minor changes.
Yeah.
We should
But
again,
once we put that
change
change in, once you ask that, and if it gets filled, then it's going to be in the next one and the next one. So we got to come up with a better system asking rather than asking,
we
here
have
and
to be
there free
reasonable
changes
with our asks, just like Fractally should be reasonable with the account name ask. Like that is infinitely complex, which is exactly what you're talking about. You can't make infinitely complex requests. We shouldn't do that either. Like if we're talking about changing a variable, whether it's time or sortition percentages, like those are easy. Like we need to be considerate of what we're asking, but we shouldn't ask for them to like build in the ranked choice voting mechanisms into the contract.
Because those are minor changes, we can do that ourselves. If we eject.
I'm not volunteering, but sure.
Or maybe we can just make a list, right? And bring it to the Fractally team, and they can tell us which ones they can do for us. And the ones that they will not do, okay.
Well, no, hang on. I thought we were ejecting and doing a declaration of independence. We're now going directly back to the British and saying, hey, do you mind if you
you need to move your votes?
Yeah, coming up with
Level 1 delegates get 100 EOS right now. Chief delegates, we're getting 590, and the head chief is getting 3,540.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Ooh,
that's
numbers have changed.
Yeah, it's a big difference there.
Cool. So first things first, declaration of independence with the bylaws, and then we can figure out what the hell to do after that. But we got to do those things before we can do anything else.
Do we get to make our own flag?
I hope so. I think what we need to do is figure out what needs to change for the next election. I don't think we're going to agree upon bylaws or we're going to eject within the next 30 days. Like that's just not realistic.
I'm just being devil's advocate.
So I do think we need to figure out what we need to change. Like that, if we are ejecting, we should know why we're ejecting. Like that is the list of things we'd like to see changed. We need to know that to justify our ejection.
we know why we need to be ejected, because like half the ideas that we've always had is, oh, why don't we do this? Oh, hang on, the contract doesn't support it, or we got to ask Fractally to facilitate it first. So you got to get rid of that before we can make changes independently, and not go to Fractally every time we want a contract update that reflects a bylaw change that we want, something like
We
that.
could easily update the contracts ourselves and then be like, hey, can you review this and approve the MSIG?
Yeah, you can also do that.
Yeah, but why would you bother doing that when you could just do it yourself and be independent?
Why would you bother ejecting if it's so easy?
Because
There's a
it's
counter
again,
argument, and I'm
it's a
playing
declaration
devil's advocate.
it's a declaration of independence. Plus, I'm not sure if they're going to be super keen on us, like making changes to the contract, but also being
They're done
active at the
working
same
on it.
time.
They don't care.
So
Guys, the thing is, if we, the chief delegates, are funding them, we are funding Fractally team, as long as they agree that they are going to work for us, this shouldn't be a problem. So
It shouldn't be.
yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. All right.
As long
We
as they
have
agree
to
to work
ask
for
them.
us, what does that mean?
As in, if Fractally team wants to stay on and run elections for us and run the smart contract for us, and we are going to pay them, right?
Yeah.
That's not an issue. We are going to need a team anyway, whether it's going to be the Fractally team or it's going to be the Randall team or the Aaron team. There has to be a team to help build this. Think about it like this. The Chinese are running Eden, right? They are going to use their own code. They're going to have their own team. The Koreans are going to have their own team. So the Fractally team is not the only team that can help you run elections. Right? So we should just write down what we need to change, and we'll go out to the team, talk to them, see what they want us to do, how much they want us to fund them, if they want funding for it, and then we will talk to the network. This is what Eden was supposed to do. The thing is, Dan just changed his mind and he screwed us up, okay? But Eden was supposed to do this.
I don't know. Everyone had a different opinion on what Eden was supposed to do.
It's true.
That's part of the problem that it has.
And that's why
It's got an identity
delegates.
crisis, and again, we address the identity crisis
Right?
by making it some damn bylaws.
No. We're the chief delegates.
Arguably, everything that you guys want to upgrade to in Fractally has an identity crisis too. There are so many questions left unanswered, including the languages we talked to today. So we are moving through this with an identity crisis that we need to figure out.
Are you talking about Fractally or fractals of Fractally?
All of it.
You see, your name.
Well, Fractally has no.
Name it.
Fractally in the framework and the app has no identity crisis. That's crystal clear. A fractal that is spawned on it, yeah, it depends on what the goal is of that particular fractal. That'd be up for them to decide. But yeah, people that want to, make EOS a better place can call it, EOS technical or whatever, and then they can, go there. But at least then every fractal that's birthed will have to have a clear, mission or whatever, and then people can join it accordingly.
And who decides that? Who decides that clear mission?
Or whoever creates the fractal.
So is Eden going to be a fractal?
It's up to us, isn't it?
No, it's Eden going to be a fractal. If we are going to be a fractal, we are deciding what our mission is going to be.
Won't it be the next election delegates we get to pick
Yeah,
them?
well,
It's up to them,
before
right?
we can create a fractal, we need to figure out what the fuck we're trying to do first, and then we can decide if a fractal will be,
That's what we are talking about right now.
and we're never not going to get there until we figure out the goal and then write some, bylaws in order to, then make the decisions on how our migration there looks like.
You see, the whole thing is this whole system of Fractally is so confusing because the name, first of all, is confusing. You say Fractally, you don't know if you're talking about a team or you're talking about application or you're talking about a fractal. Okay.
You think we'd have learned by now after Steam it, EOS.io, Fractal, Fractally, but no.
The Empire Strikes Back.
Right?
The trilogy.
Empire Strikes Back. It's the trilogy, yeah.
But if we are thinking about Eden becoming a fractal, then Eden and the chief delegates have the right to decide what our fractal is going to look like. Nobody can tell us that.
Yeah, but
So
before
we
we
still
consider being a fractal or any other, type of DAO, we still need to figure out what the goal is. And that's completely independent of the platform that we host the DAO.
So
on.
who's going to decide that? Who's going to decide that?
Well, it's meant to be us, isn't it?
Let's do
It
it.
is so early on to be deciding that with theoretical
what do you
software
mean?
that
It's-
doesn't
it's-
exist. Like you guys act like we could adopt.
Well, no, I
Fractally
said,
tomorrow.
I said before we consider the method of however we host the, the DAO, we need to figure out, what we are. We can do that independently of any software. It's a matter of just, actually deciding what the goal of, our DAO is, or, whatever you want to call it. It's technically not a DAO,
Don.
smart organization.
John, you have wasted our time. Okay, we were a month ago, we could have sat down here and talked about who we are, write our bylaws. You told us to wait for a white paper. And now you are telling us that we have to do that now?
Well, we've always needed to do that. I said that from the very couple meetings, like, hey, what the hell is Fractally? I mean, what the hell is Eden? Are we some glorified way of just handing out, money to the community? In which case it's probably easier to just do Pomelo and call it a day. Or are we trying to do some governance? Are we trying to, get BP power? Like, what the hell is the point? And we never figured that out till even today.
Okay.
I think we should
job is
split
to
our
spend
attention
funds.
between funding Fractally, the birth of Fractally, and supporting EOS. Those are our
Yes.
two main
Yes.
clear
Support EOS.
mandates that we kind of have. One is because I think we have a responsibility to see this experiment evolve, and or maybe there's three reasons to exist. One is I think Eden as it is may have value just as it is in its current iteration, even if not for EOS in the long run, just as a smart contract platform that could be deployed wherever, however, by whoever, for like the simple task of using the system to elect people that can delegate resources, apportion resources. So maybe it's maintaining the existing infrastructure, supporting Fractally, and finding a way to continue building on EOS. That's our tripartite set of goals, perhaps.
I agree.
That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I agree with you. Oh, you are muted, Chris. Chris, you are muted.
Damn it, thank you. We can still write bylaws, just basic ones.
Yeah.
Let's just not
Yeah.
get too heavy. Like we can still add and suggest them, and then the next set of delegates will campaign on ratifying them or not. Like we still have that chance.
Yeah, I agree. But we can update the contract so that the elections are not this long. I mean, the time in office. Because I think 6 months is a long time.
So are there, Aaron and John went back and forth a lot about ejecting versus not ejecting, independence versus whatever. What's the consensus of the group after hearing that for as long as we've been on?
I'm only willing to eject as long as we have a parachute.
Yeah, same. I want to know
What's
how to pull the cord, and I want to know what's going to happen and what the signs of trouble are. Because as I'm
What does that
falling
look
through
like?
the air, I don't know.
Yeah, we need
Time. We
Yeah,
can't just do it on the spot.
The plane will have ran out of fuel by then. We have to jump out and build the parachute on the way down. Otherwise, we're never going to do anything. We're never
Yeah,
going to go
blockchain
skydiving.
space.
Live a life on the edge.
Blockchain space. You can't land first and then change the engine.
comfortable if we talk to the right people.
Yeah.
Who's the right people?
I agree with Jesse.
Hey guys, I got to run to another call. But
Yeah.
this is awesome,
Should
and
wrap up.
I look forward to ejecting whatever that is.
I look forward to jumping out of a plane with all of you.
I support rejecting after we kind of get the support from the community.
Yeah. So
And
I
there's
think, go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say if we want this process improved and we need funds to improve it, to do these things, we can ask for that funding as well. Like I have extra budget as well. Like there is money to make sure that if we want changes to be applied to Eden as it is while we are waiting on Fractally, because that's the reality we have right now. Like we have a few options on how to make those changes happen. That don't depend on us, because for us, we're only here for another month or so guaranteed. And then beyond that, we don't know if we're going to be elected. Maybe what we're talking about right now is completely opposed by everyone else that participates and none of us are elected. So
let's ask them.
That's why we're just going to propose it. We'd set it up for the next people if they want to do it.
Yeah, but the elections has to be shorter. That one we all agree on. We can reach consensus on that.
We should, again, come up with a list of those types of improvements that we would recommend. So that way people who are coming into the next election have proper expectations.
And
know that they can go any direction they want based on those recommendations.
Yeah. And John, let me say this. By us doing this, we are helping save Dan's butt, okay? Because we are not going to let another project die, because it seems like the way things are, if we don't do that and we hop out of this damn plane and things go wrong, that'll be it.
I don't know. I feel like maybe it should die. Just give it a clean death.
What?
Don't prolong it.
That's not gonna look good.
Get Mercy kill it. Mercy kill Eden.
I'd rather see another election, and if all people do is donate those funds to Pomelo, like that's better than Eden not existing.
Yeah, I agree with you, Aaron. We can actually just let this thing keep going, but at least we shouldn't let this thing die after we spend 100,000 EOS.
No, experiments succeed and fail, but the information that we gathered is still worth it alone, I reckon, for what Dan's based Fractally on. So
no, but think about it.
Not a failure, even if it did die.
The Chinese are running their Eden election. They are working on it. The Koreans did theirs. So this is something that people like. It's not like people don't like it. It's a matter of us putting effort into it to make it a little bit better and just leave it.
Well, hopefully the Chinese have made some bylaws to go on day one.
Yeah.
They made bylaws?
No, but I don't know, but they're in the process of forming.
I'm going to get my hands on it and see what they came up with.
How many are there?
How many what?
Like members or people that are interested in the Chinese Eden?
I think it's 60. You have 60 or so.
Yeah, it's a good chunk of people. What's left of the Chinese Eden EOS community?
Yeah, well, I wonder what the differences is, or if you could still call it Eden 6 months. It's almost taken that time.
Well, it's not easy. And also they're finding developers. So we may end up needing the Chinese developers to and we could perhaps lean on them to develop or to maintain the code base as well. Because they're already, I think, planning on doing that. But yeah. All right. Well, we've got a precious few meetings and precious little time left until our tenure is over, and it seems like folks want to do something dramatic on the way out the door, and we should probably come up with a plan that kind of weaves all this stuff together. Chris is gone now, but we don't need to come up with a plan on this call right now, but I laid out my perspective on I could sacrifice either one of those three agendas, but that's the all-inclusive package as I see it, is we do all the things, but there may be other approaches to go. John wants to kill the baby, and Randall wants Eden to live on forever, and Aaron is concerned about taking all the responsibility of the MSIG on his shoulder, which we probably wouldn't have to do because we can pass that that curse off to the next chief delegates.
Good
Or we
luck,
could just
next chief
suggest-
delegates.
We could be like, here's what you do. You eject. Let me tell you about this eject thing. It's great. Press the eject button right after the election. And we'll just give them a box with a little red button. Like pass it off to whoever the new chief delegates are.
That's
That's what
hilarious.
we should do. We should design like a choose your own adventure for the next chief delegates. It's like here are the paths before you. You can go left and it leads you this way, or straight ahead goes to this. Or you can choose all three things. But
No, it's like that meme with the two red buttons.
mhm,
It's
yeah.
eject or do nothing.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the guy sweating.
Yep.
Well, I like Aaron's kind of very conservative. Let's just put a list of things that can be improved. Let's just start there. And then I think we all need to kind of think about this whole eject thing a little bit more.
Yeah, but the one thing we have to understand is that we have someone who is actually part of who's wearing another hat for the advisory board for the ENF, right? We have that, and we have someone who also have a little bit of insights in that they can try to get things organized for us in terms of like if you want to talk to the ENF or the network to see what is going on, what their thought process is. So basically, and also we have John who can reach out to the Fractally team, right? So basically we have I would say everyone on this meeting technically. So if this is a good idea, we will know. If it's a bad idea, we will know. So I think that we should just do the best to save the system the way it is, and we can even have Fractally as well, because why can't we have both of them, right? But to kill the baby and not give the baby a chance to grow is not a good thing, in my opinion.
We can let
Plus, I feel like it's going to be like a couple of years or like a little bit until there's a working Fractally system.
Yes.
So we don't want to
Yeah.
kill something too early.
Yeah. We need
We
it
can't
to
be
function.
optimistic. We need to be realistic on timelines. Like this stuff takes time. So,
Yeah.
I mean, how long did Eden take for the first MVP? It was 7-8 months or something. No, maybe not that long. I don't know. It was over half a year, but
Yeah, it was about 6 months, I think.
there's definitely going to be at least one more election. I would bet on at least 2 or 3 based on if we can get the time frame reduced. Like this is going to keep going for a little bit,
Yeah.
unless we just pull the plug on it, which I don't
No.
support.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Let the
So,
experiment keep running, keep learning from it, use the funding that comes from it to improve EOS, just like we all have been. You know,
All right.
anyways.
All right. Here's your you guys ready for the folk tale?
Oh yeah.
This is we're gonna
By the way,
we're gonna wrap it up with-
my wife loved the one with Hassan and Ali. I told
Oh,
my
yeah.
wife about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to share that because it just comes across as too critical of certain decisions people have made. But
Is
I'm
that the
glad.
one with the
With the
where,
bear.
where, where he shakes the coins and that's how you pay him back?
No, that's Hoja in the marketplace.
Oh, that was
Um,
my personal favorite one.
That's a good one too. We're gonna go to Europe for this one. It came up yesterday for me when John was talking about enchiladas on the other call, and I was like, this reminds me of what we really need is a stone soup. So this is the story of stone soup, one version of it. Once upon a time, there was a great famine, which means there wasn't enough food to go around. The people in one small village didn't have enough to eat, and definitely not enough to store away for the winter. People were afraid their families would go hungry, so they hid the small amounts of food they did have. They even hid their food from their friends and neighbors. One day, a wandering soldier came into the village. He asked the different people he met about finding a place to eat and sleep for the night. There's not a bite to eat in the whole county, they told him. You better keep moving on. Oh, I have everything I need, he said. In fact, I would like to make some stone soup to share with all of you. He pulled a big black cooking pot from his wagon. He filled it with water and built a fire under it. Then he reached slowly into his knapsack, and while several villagers watched, he pulled a plain gray stone from a cloth bag and dropped it into the water. By now, hearing about the magic stone, most of the villagers were surrounding the soldier and his cooking pot. As the soldier sniffed the stone soup and licked his lips, the villagers began to overcome their lack of trust. Ah, the soldier said aloud to himself, I do like a tasty stone soup. Of course, stone soup with cabbage is even better. Soon a villager ran from his house into the village square holding a cabbage. I have this cabbage from my garden, he said, as he held it out for the soldier. Fantastic, cried the soldier. The soldier cut up the cabbage and added it to the pot. You know, I once had a stone soup with cabbage and a bit of beef, and it was delicious. The butcher said he thought he could find some beef scraps. As he ran back to his shop, other villagers offered up bits of vegetables from their own gardens, potatoes, onions, carrots, celery. Soon the big black pot was bubbling and steaming. When the soup was ready, everyone in the village ate a bowl of soup, and it was delicious. The villagers offered the soldier money and other treasures for the magic stone, but he refused to sell it. He had many offers for a cot to sleep on that night. The next day, he traveled on his way.
That's a very thoughtful one, huh? Yeah.
So what's the
think-
lesson?
Well, what do you think, Jesse?
Well,
Wrap.
I think that you give a little bit and you get a lot.
Someone needs to find the magic stone, clearly. Yeah, I mean, at the bottom of this thing, it says, what is the moral of the story? By working together with everyone contributing what they can, a greater good is achieved. Yeah, I think we're in a similar situation. That's why I read this story. We're in a situation where it seems like there's all this scarcity and, you know, we've been in a great famine for a long time and everyone's like hiding away what they can and afraid to risk or afraid to try anything. And it just kind of just takes a few people, or in this case, one person, but in our case, probably more than one person, to be like, nope, we're making soup. And for people to be like, what? With what ingredients? And you're like, oh, don't worry, like there's ingredients. Because we, you know, we have all the ingredients in the community to make an excellent stew for EOS, for fractal governance, for Eden if it wants its own life, apart from an early grave. It's just a matter of getting everyone to contribute and be on the same page about it. So we'll see.
All right, you guys. All right, have a great day.
Awesome.
Have a good night, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
See you
ya.
soon.
Yeah.